Live, David. You didn't have your headsets on, but I have the goal call for you if you want it.
I heard. I heard it in the background.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller
I drove, which made me happier. I didn't let anybody else behind the wheel of the car.
and Moulton.
Look at you! I'm the man of the house.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Oh, I like
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
How the heck are you? Miller and Moulton Hump Day edition. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We're streaming once again, millerandmoulton.com. You know the drill. Broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. You can sign up for both. YouTube, obviously free. Twitch.tv, free if you're an Amazon Prime customer. And if not, well, sign up anyway. You can sign up a month at a time. All right. It's worth it. Just for the commercial breaks alone, it's worth it. Top of the morning to you, Mark. How are you?
Terrific. Could not be better.
Well, I saw you were cannonballing into the pool in the middle of the night.
I did.
First off, I believe that's the only way to enter the pool.
I've kind of set that on my daughters. Only one way to get in. It's not always a cannonball, but it's always a jump.
Right. You don't tiptoe your way in. Ooh, it's cold. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh, now it's on my belly. Just get in the pool.
No, I made a tweet. I put a tweet out that said, when this thing's over, I'm going to cannonball into the pool. And someone said, without video, there's no proof. So, told the wife, grab the camera.
And by this thing, we're talking about the Tampa Bay Columbus playoff game.
Game
which
one.
One.
Game one.
Right. Of round one. Now, I know we just had a qualifying round, but this is the first game of the normal playoffs. There are 16 teams left, 4 best-of-7 series. And you want to know why hoisting Lord Stanley's Cup is generally regarded as the toughest championship to win in team sports. Game one, series one, they play 5 overtimes.
They played so long that they caused a series to be delayed a day.
First time I can ever recall them tapping 2 teams on the shoulder and going, we don't know when this game's going to end, so you guys might as well go back to the hotel.
I mean, in full AAU fashion, they simply went to the Bruins and the Carolina Hurricanes and said, I don't know what to tell you, but we're not allowed to start a game after this time. Therefore, you are going to play tomorrow morning at 11 a.m.
Right.
NHL playoff hockey is starting at 8 a.m. Pacific for those interested in L.A.
Yes, allow. So that was just some of what took place. While certain conferences are not playing at all, we thought the Lightning and the Blue Jackets might play forever. But midway through the 5th overtime, yes, period 8 for those counting at home. Midway through period 8.
Last 5 overtime game I remember watching was a Flyers game, and Keith Primo at about 3:30 in the morning had the game winner. And I jumped out of my seat then, not caring who won, because I was just excited that someone scored. I was rooting for the Tampa Bay Lightning. My wife's a Pens fan. I am a diehard Red Wing fan. They're both out of the playoffs.
Right.
I've always liked the Lightning. I worked in their organization, kind of, sort of, organization. I'm sorry, it's hockey.
Right.
I worked in their organization for a couple of years with their minor league affiliates. I had several friends who had their cup of coffee with Tampa, had friends who worked for the Lightning. So I'm a Lightning fan just by proxy. I would like to see them avenge this series loss from Columbus a year ago. And as you're watching the game and they give up a late one in period 2, which seems like it was 6 days ago, you're like, oh boy, that's a tough one to give up. And then they go score 25 seconds into the third. They get a too many men on the ice penalty. David, you and I both know Cooper loses this series. I think he has to get done. He has to get to at least a conference final and maybe a cup final to save his job.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, it's go time. Absolutely.
And when you get a too many men penalty, after working your tail off to come back and you've got all the momentum, I looked at that and said, you better kill this penalty, because that's a penalty that could end a coach's career right there, because he gets the blame for that.
Sure. There are some famous too many men on the ice penalties in Stanley Cup playoff history, and but the Lightning survive in 5 overtimes for Game 1 of the first best-of-7 series, and in theory, they believe they're going to be playing 4 of them. So there you have it, and the game ended at around 8:30? Started at 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
5.5-hour game?
Yep.
I mean, listen, I don't want to say it went a long time, but when the game that started 3 hours after yours did ends and you're still playing, you've been playing a while.
I had nothing for Vegas and Chicago after that game, David, because Calgary and Dallas is already over. You're right.
Correct. Right. It was done. And Tampa Bay and then Columbus were merely in the 4th overtime. It's like, oh, no, we still have another half hour or so we could keep playing. So, and yes, Mark, with you, I closed the bar and would not let the old Stevie's that was on 41 in Fort Myers just before Page Field there. All right.
One of the dirtiest bars in Southwest Florida.
Had the great chicken strips, though. And so after, the local news and all that, I was still doing TV then, because I think that was 03.
Right.
And 5 overtimes, Keith Primo, and they're cleaning up, and the entire staff was sent home. Just the manager was in the back counting money, and he kind of popped his head out, and I looked at him, and I go, 4th overtime. I go, whatever you need to get done, get it done. I'm not leaving. Okay, I said, you give me the key, I'll lock up. And he thought about it, but he went back in and he did a little more stuff, and he came back out and he actually sat down. He had nothing left to do, and he sat down. And I said, so you're going to watch it with me, huh? He goes, yeah, how long could this go? I go, well, it's already 2:45 a.m. Go, the game started at 7:30.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if that game starts normal time yesterday, I told my wife, I said, at some point I would have just gone to the studio and watched, because I would have just rolled over and started the show when the game was over.
Yeah, this would have been, thank goodness that was the 3 o'clock game yesterday, because you and I, there is a, what do you call
I don't believe really in unwritten rules. I've given David a very hard time over the years with the unwritten rules, but we have an unwritten rule for hockey.
Correct.
You're either in or you're out.
Yep. Before they drop the puck in the first overtime, you've got that intermission to gauge yourself. Can I do this? Can I do this? This could last a while. Am I in or am I out? And we normally send each other a text. Okay, are you in? Question mark. And if you don't get a response, you assume
they're out.
The other guy's already asleep or is out.
Jerry, I'm out.
Right. Kramer and the contest episode. I'm out. And so I don't know how it worked in your house. Yes, we both have multiple TVs and all that, but usually the early evening, that's time for the wife and I to bond. To spend a little time together. We haven't seen each other all day. And, we've got a bit of a routine. My wife likes to watch the news, all right? And then she likes to watch Family Feud for a half an hour, and then the beginning of Entertainment Tonight. She needs her, and then
gloss over life for a moment.
Right. And then once ET takes their first commercial break around 7:40 or so, I can do whatever I want with the TV. Well, when the news starts and this, that, and the other thing, it's like the second overtime. I'm looking at her and she's like, hey, sit down. There's a lot of stuff I want to tell you about my day. And I'm looking at her like, honey, I love you. You know that. I would take a bullet for you. And she goes, what? And I go, but the Lightning and the Blue Jackets are going to the second overtime. I go, I'm invested in this. I got 3.5 hours already in this. I go, I'll keep the door open in the other room. You can just kind of yell out what you want to talk to me about. Fine, you and your playoff hockey.
And fortunately, my wife is a hockey fan. So we had it on. Daughter and wife were in the pool. I had a call that I missed most of the first period. I was on a call for a while. And so I'm 1-1 second period. And I enjoyed periods 2 and 3 from the pool. It was fantastic. And
you sound like that old NBA promo.
Oh,
all right.
I mean, then I told my wife very early in the second period, I said, let me phrase this correctly for you. What takeout would you like for dinner tonight?
Yeah, I'm in, honey. This just in. I'm in.
Okay. We haven't even got to overtime yet, and I'm in.
No, right, I'm in.
I mean, it's 1-1 in the second, and I'm like, what takeout do you want? So, I mean, not only swimming, sushi, bottle of wine, open to second, and we're like in the second overtime going, I don't know if where's the Red Bull for this sucker?
You're thinking, I'm going to be hammered by the time this game
Holy cow.
Man, now I'm going to gain 3 pounds and be a little runk.
And,
to be honest.
And there were so many I mean, overtimes are so great because, I mean, I don't know if you were on Twitter at all, but I mean, no. I noticed the number of our listeners, people some that I know that hockey isn't their first, second, or even third choice as a sport, were all in yesterday.
Oh, playoff hockey's fun.
And
on any shift.
And Mike Milbury.
Oh no! Come on now! Don't bring it down.
No. I'm not a fan, and I'll try to do this as nicely as possible. But I don't understand how a guy who played in a 5 overtime game can utter, "We don't need this anymore." That we need to figure out a way to end these games.
No,
Mike.
No.
Now he made one point that I thought was valid. He goes, because they kind of asked about with no fans. He said, Mike goes, when you play in these games, if they start normal time, by the time you get to the third overtime, the fans are asleep. And I will say, having worked as a broadcaster for the best sporting event I worked as a broadcaster was close to being the FGCU winning the conference when it was out of nowhere. When they're dribbling it up against Belmont, that would have been it. But for me, it was I think it was game 3 game 4 of the Turner Cup Finals, of which the team I worked for won a ring. We were down 5-0, ended up winning 7-6 in triple overtime. And I remember some of the crowd shots in between the overtimes of the kid falling asleep in the parent's arm, or of the older guy who's just out in between periods. And I get it that the crowd's not into it late, but I do know this. Our television numbers in Atlanta, maybe not the cume, maybe not the total number of watchers, viewers, but our number as that game went into the wee hours of the morning climbed and climbed and climbed in Atlanta for minor league hockey.
Right.
So don't tell me that people aren't tuning in to NHL overtime hockey, you rube.
And this is pre-Twitter and all that stuff, but the word spreads.
Right.
People call each other up and go, you watching this? Watching what? Oh, Atlanta.
They're in the double overtime.
Yeah. It's 6-6. Somebody in our Twitch chat room, Spits on Sports, chimed in. You and I taking on Milbury there. How else are you going to end it? As he points out, it's like a World Cup in which they decide, okay, we got to go to penalty kicks. No, I don't think so. It's a World Flipping Cup.
I mean, they've decided. I mean, they decided the Olympic gold medal in a shootout, and I think it's horse blank.
Yes, they only play 10 minutes. For those that want to know, you play a 10-minute overtime for the gold medal or for the bronze medal, and then they go to a shootout.
At least in the World Cup, they play 2 lengthy overtimes before PKs, right?
2 15 minutes, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, but that's
yeah, but so what?
No. I mean, but at least it's better than the Olympics.
Yes. I mean, Right, because they only play 1/6 of the game in overtime, where at least in soccer they play 1/3 of the match in overtime. But I'm sorry, play. You gotta end this on a goal, not on a penalty kick. Come on now. Besides, it's the that I mentioned. It's the World Cup,
right?
I mean, this is the most important thing we got going, right? We're gonna end this on penalty kicks. In which, let's face it, there's cheating that goes on with just about every penalty kick. I mean, very few goalies are stationary and to the point of contact. They're guessing and jumping and leaning. So every penalty kick, when a goalie makes a save, the other team always cries foul because they're like, well, he was moving before he kicked it. And it's hardly ever called. So I hate penalty kicks. Absolutely hate it.
See what you did, Spitz, on sports?
Yep.
You bring that up, and the hockey monologue just turned into the World Cup monologue.
That's all. But for those
that gets him fired up.
No, but for those that agree with Milbury, for those that go, I don't know, 5 overtimes, especially when it's one game of a series, we got to find. Listen, I'm the same guy. Like, I'm the baseball guy who goes, we shouldn't play more than 12 innings.
In the regular season.
In the regular season. But in the playoffs, you just play. You just play. I mean, if it goes 18 innings, it goes 18 innings. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, hockey's goofed this up at the end so badly that we're playing 3-on-3 overtimes. I mean, it doesn't even look like the sport anymore.
No, it's a joke.
But that's fine. It's the regular season. They've decided that they need a victor and a loser, and they need to do it quickly. Okay, fine. I'm okay with it. I don't like it. But last night was everything that's great about sports. 5 overtimes. Game one. They got to turn around and play tomorrow.
Right. Right. I always love the stories. So what'd you guys do in between the overtimes? We ate.
That's what they're doing.
What'd you eat? Well, you start off, you don't know how long it's going to go. You're grabbing snacks. Okay. But, by like as you're leaving to go on the ice for the third overtime, you're kind of saying to somebody, hey, can we have some pizza or some pasta or something ready by the time we come back?
A lot of PB&Js usually in those locker rooms for that at that point. A lot of oranges, a lot of bananas. But I was texting with a couple of guys, Sean Rivers, who played on that Atlanta night team. His brother Jamie works in St. Louis, and we've been trying to work. Jamie does work in our business, and been trying to work on getting Jamie to join us when the Blues, if they get rolling. And I'm like, you never played anything longer than that Fort Wayne game. He goes, no. And, I text Buckley. I said, what's your longest? He said 2, several times in pro. I had 1 triple overtime game in junior to get to the Memorial Cup that he won in 3 overtimes. So that was kind of my head, just kind of going to some friends that I know because I know they're all watching and they've experienced it. I can't imagine, the game was so sloppy by the 4th and 5th overtime, but it's still great. I mean, the fact that they're able to make plays, and John Cooper said it after the game, the fact that both teams are still able to make plays when there's nothing left in the legs. You saw it. A guy would try to go outside of a defenseman, and once he put him on the boards, it was over because there's nothing left.
Right.
A hit in the first period that they would skate through is leveling a guy in the 3rd and 4th overtime.
Listen, when you as a viewer are tired from watching a game and then try to imagine you're playing in it.
But that is what excited us. And David, we needed.
Yes.
I mean, there has never been a time that we needed the Tampa Bay Lightning to give us a historic game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Teams that when you think hockey and you think the annals of the sport, you go Blue Jackets and Lightning because of their long history in the game. And by long history, I mean an hour and a half.
Right. No championships between one. Lightning won the Cup in 2004.
But when 40% of the Power 5 football conferences have flushed the toilet on the season by the time we've gotten to the, 3rd overtime, because the Big Ten had already done it by the time the game had started. The Pac-12 waited until, I think, it must have been mid-second period, because it was a 7:30.
No, I think you read that wrong. It was 4:30 Eastern. It was 1:30 Pacific.
Okay.
It was done by dinner. It was done by dinner.
Okay, yeah, it was so 4:30 Eastern. It was.
Yeah. You knew at dinner time, you were watching the early evening news. Big Ten and Pac-12 were done.
Done.
That's it.
Done. By the time the third period started, you're right, David. We are now assured that 40% of the college football season is over. And I think by that point, Urban Meyer has already come out and said, yeah, there's no way a spring football season is going to work.
Well, he's not alone there.
But of all of the people, I mean, it's Urban Meyer who was last at Ohio State. I think a lot of us, I know, the Florida fan will always associate with the Gators, but when you see Urban right now, you think Buckeyes. No two ways about it. And when the former Buckeye head coach says there's no way that the Buckeyes will play a spring football season, this ain't going to work. It's the darkest day in Detroit.
Okay. Miller and Moulton. That obviously the big story in the sports world. We've talked a lot of college football these last 2 days, and we will begin after the break talking a lot of it again, in which, well, the Big Ten carried through on their threat, and the Pac-12 immediately followed because, let's face it, that's what the Pac-12 does. Whatever Big Brother does, they just go along. You know what, Mark? We need to end the whole Michigan State, Mike Hart calling Michigan State little brother.
Right.
You know who little brother is? Little brother's the Pac-12. They really are. The Big Ten is big brother. The Pac-12 is little brother. Because whatever you do, big bro, I'm going to follow. And they did. And now, what do the rest decide?
And, well, it seems that they're going to decide to try to play football first and foremost. But there was a time, David, that when the Big Ten and their little brother made a move, everybody simply followed along because they thought that they were the two smartest people in the room.
Right. And they may be.
They
may be.
They may prove that they are. There is no doubt. But the stepbrothers, named the ACC, SEC, and Big 12, have finally quit listening to their older brothers. The SEC did first, and the SEC then gained enough courage and enough moxie that the other two stepbrothers quit looking at the Big Ten for direction and said,
hey,
they seem to have something going on over there.
Yeah, I just married into this family. Okay, I could be out of this family in a heartbeat. And at first, when this marriage formed, I didn't have high self-esteem. But now, I got to admit, I feel pretty good about myself. So that, family, not family, doesn't really matter to me. You want to invite me over, us over for the family dinner? That's fine. But if you two divorce, okay, you pull away, we're good. We're good. We're fine. I can do my own thing. I love you, but I don't need you. Just so you know. Miller and Moulton. The starting five is next. You'll hear, by the way, what it sounded like in the fifth overtime when Tampa Bay beat Columbus. And a few other things went on in the sports world yesterday that can easily get lost under the radar. That's what the starting five is for. It's next, Miller and Moulton. Top of the morning to you on this hump day. Thanks so much for listening. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Swinging a foul ball. To catch a foul ball. Somebody made a good catch down there. It's on every fan's bucket list.
Got yourself a foul ball.
The chance is slim, but it's always there. Except this year, as balls fly into empty seats.
And a foul.
You have zero chance. And with fewer chances to catch Major League Baseball, don't miss your chance to hear something special. Major League Baseball is here. How did that ball have that special sound? Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Whether you stop by a locally owned Napa Auto Parts,
I can't believe what's-his-face for Columbus played more minutes than Hedman. It seemed like Hedman didn't leave the ice for the third period.
We've got our good friend
Tim Jones?
Yeah, but I mean, Hedman seemed like there was a portion of the third period that I think Hedman was on the ice for 8 straight minutes, David.
Right now we have 90 colors of Core-Tech in stock, ready to go.
And then he went out in the last minute of one of the overtimes and came back in 20 seconds later.
$299 on up with lifetime warranty.
And it's not just the many colors of Core-Tech that you have. You also have other Core-Tech products as well.
We also carry the Core-Tech Stone product.
Did you see Jeff Goodman's tweet last night?
So you get the softness,
I retweeted it.
easy installation.
Power 5 AD on the Big Ten and Pac-12 canceling football. You've got one pro guy with no background in the industry in Kevin Warren, and a guy in Larry Scott who acts like he's smarter than everyone else. We're supposed to be about the players. This isn't about the players.
Or go online, floormeisters.com. That's floormeisters.com.
Anything else? Yep. Anything else?
Dan Martineau here, owner of DR Martineau Roofing of Southwest Florida. We're still finding a lot of roofs with hurricane and windstorm damage. Call us today for a free inspection. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-1441.
License number CCC 1326954.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know is DR Martineau.
Pool need a checkup? The Pool Doctor.
Hi, Dr. Mark here. Is your pool a pain to operate? Automation is the answer. Use your phone to turn on your spa, and it'll be warm when you get home. Free on-site evaluation. We're a family.
I got this link, Pat Donovan says an hour ago, so I accidentally clicked on this link with the volume up on my phone all the way, and my wife is asleep next to me. Needless to say, she's no longer asleep. It's Michigan's call.
Listen to the Dan Patrick Show at work. Never boring, that's for sure. Streaming 24/7 at Fox.
No way, Tom.
No, I said it yesterday, Tom.
No way.
I don't think that Warren's the commissioner a year from now.
You don't think so, period.
No.
I mean, even if the other three don't play football, you think he's done.
Yeah, I think the way he went about this, I think.
Times and locations at colliervotes.com. That's colliervotes.com. Avoid the lines on election day by voting or at an early voting location near you.
Fire threatens everything in its path. When it threatens our we respond. We bring the fight.
So you got the hockey queued up?
I do.
Ready to face the dangers of Mother Nature and protect our homes and our neighbors. We will always be there when your community needs us the most. Discover more about all the ways you can serve part-time.
I do.
By visiting nationalguard.com. Sponsored by the Florida Army National Guard. Aired by the Florida Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Yeah, I think his son's going to Mississippi State. Thought I heard that. Warren's son plays at Mississippi State.
Some of the best cataract surgeons in the world are right here in our area at Community Eye Center.
We really care.
That is the one thing, what Ryan says there. That's what people are really worried about is the recruiting toll that this will take on that conference.
Yeah, he's wrong, though. It won't affect the Buckeyes much. It'll affect the others a lot. It won't affect the Buckeyes. Ohio State's a factory. It's a brand. Okay.
But there's going to be a bunch of Ohio State players that don't play in the spring.
Oh, yeah. We'll see how many of them transfer here by the end of the week.
How many can transfer and think play this fall? I'm being one. How are they going to allow a transfer on August 12th to play in 3 weeks?
See, I actually think it's easy. The NCAA could do that in the snap of a finger.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
29 minutes past the hour. Top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? We're Miller and Moulton on this hump day. Thanks for listening to Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream this show at millerandmoulton.com. We broadcast it live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. You can always chime in via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line. You know, I got a text from a listener last night that said, hey, maybe you'll take my call. I go, the number's 479-5551. We're not blocking any calls here. It's just that, people don't call in the morning. They text.
We may have to, for the rest of August, at least go back to what we did for a while in Act 1. And that isn't just a football Friday, but a football phone call Friday.
Whoa.
Just saying.
Giro's like, hey, hold on a second. I didn't sign up for this back at the ranch. I mean, when you guys start talking, I go get coffee. I go talk to the men and women at Wink TV down the hall. I mean, I
don't
know
blame
what
them.
you
They're
guys
so
do.
much better looking than radio people. Those TV people.
I mean,
they're the pretty
like,
people.
I don't sit in this studio to answer phone calls. What are you, crazy? It's bad enough I got to listen to you two. So, if you're still listening,
do your thing.
Time now for
Starting Five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton Starting 5. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
It would have been really funny if he just waited about 3-4 seconds there before he played it.
It would have.
To give the impression that he had left the room.
To get a coffee. But he
stopped listening.
He does text us when he gets a coffee.
He does.
He does. He says, guys, I'm running to get a coffee.
Right.
He does a great job. Like he just said, I'm going to get a coffee.
Right. He even sent it with an emoji yesterday, didn't he?
Yep.
Going to get a coffee.
Yeah, with a cup of coffee.
Right. Oh, wow, that's polite. That is nice. They were polite about it. They were nice about it, the Big Ten and the Pac-12. They just said, you know what, we're not playing. We're not playing. The Big Ten canceled their football season. The Pac-12 canceled all sports until January 1st. That affects FGCU because
sure does.
That season opener against USC on November 10th looked really good on paper. That ain't going to happen.
Krzyzewski, Izzo, any want to come down? We got an opening. Kentucky? Anyone?
Right.
Bueller?
November 10th's available. Anybody? Any Power 5 want to
Oh, sorry, Big Ten. You know you're not going to do it because if you can't play football, then you sure as hell aren't playing basketball.
So, needless to say, the USC-FGCU game is not going to happen, and one wonders if, in fact, it will ever happen at Alico, whether or not it'll get rescheduled because FGCU is scheduled to go to USC next year, and so in theory it would have to be made up on the back end of that, so you wonder if, in fact, it will ever happen. The Big 12, however, they had a meeting last night. They had a meeting, and they want to play. So right now you've got the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, who are all moving forward with plans to play. Now, there's still a decent amount of time until somebody kicks off. Like, I'm pretty sure the Big 12 has not approved any games before September 5th. I think the ACC is the same, either the 5th or the 12th. The SEC is not until the end of September on the 26th. So there's still plenty of time for these conferences to decide, you know what, that ain't going to happen. But as of right now, Mark, remember the Meatloaf song, 2 out of 3 ain't bad? Well, when it comes to college football this year, 3 out of 5 ain't bad. And you know what? There's Mike Oresco in the AAC going, hey, we're playing. UCF, Memphis, here we are. We're game. You want us? You guys are looking for games now. You're all complaining. You can't get any non-conference games. Here we are. Hello, we're the AAC. We're here. You know my number. We can make this happen. But Mark, in all seriousness, because I believe that the college, if these 3 Power 5 conferences go forward, I believe we'll have a playoff. I believe we'll have a Heisman. I believe we'll have a playoff. I don't know about any other bowl games besides.
Well, there's not enough teams to fill the bowl games.
Right.
There's not enough teams playing college football to fulfill all of the bowl obligations. So but obviously the Rose Bowl's canceled.
Well,
sure. That's a playoff game this year, though, I think.
Is it?
I got to get the good book.
The national championship game, I believe, is
Tampa.
in Miami.
Miami, okay. I knew it was one
Super
of the other.
Bowl's in Tampa.
That's right. This is our little run where everything was in the state of Florida here for a good bit.
Right. We go Super Bowl, then we go national championship, then we go Super Bowl. We even have the NHL All-Star game next year in Fort Lauderdale. We got a lot coming to the state here in the next year or so. But you really have to wonder, Mark. Remember, we talked to Phil Steele on Monday, and we said, group of 5 team, best chance to run the table. He goes, I think it's UCF. He goes, I think they're the best team in the group of 5. Now, some would have said Boise State, but Boise State's not playing. Mark, would you be against this year? And you know what? I actually think there's a lot of fans a lot of fans who would go, hey, you know what? They had the onions to play. They had the onions to play, and if they throw a donut up on the board, whether it's 8-0, 9-0, whatever it ends up being, you know what? Put them in. I really believe that. I think there's a lot of fans in college football who a couple years ago were not in favor of UCF getting into the playoff. But this year, because of everything, if a group of 5 team, particularly from the AAC, were to throw up a 9-0, 10-0 season, they'd say, you know what? Give them the 4 seed. Put them in.
David, absolutely.
They played. Let's reward them. They played. Put them in.
Yes.
I could argue it's the group of 5's best shot to make the playoff for the next 5-6 years while we still have this system in place.
And it is the Rose and the Sugar that are the semis this year. Well, David, there's no Rose Bowl parade already.
Right.
California has been against large gatherings.
Correct.
More than any other state. Been pretty adamant about this.
Right.
We'll see. They're going to have pro football games in California, but I'm guessing they'll still have the playoff game there. But
remember, you said large gatherings, and neither team in Los Angeles really attracts a whole bunch of people. So, it's that old Sports Center Democrat.
Bill Bradley, a large audience. Yes.
Oh, I gave the keynote address to the Democratic National Convention. We said large audience, Bill.
That's it.
Right. Here, to me, though, Mark, most interesting thing that came out of yesterday.
I know where you're going.
Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren was asked about, Nebraska's still mighty honked off. And Nebraska, even after you guys canceled the season, said, yeah, we're still intending to play. And he said, well, if that's the case, then they're no longer members of the Big Ten. So there you have it. He drew his line in the sand, which we were talking yesterday, Mark. He has to. He has to. What's the sense of having a conference and bylaws if a school can just get up and do their own thing and then return whenever they want to? Hey, we are the law of the land, like it or not. Okay, this is your parent grounding you. If you decide to sneak out the back window and go out and have a good time, if you get caught, and trust me, we're going to catch you, we're going to know, then there's hell to pay. And it, of course, begs the question, Mark, at this point, maybe Nebraska wants to leave the Big Ten. Maybe they're calling up Bob Bowlesby going, would you take us back?
It's possible.
It's possible. Take us back?
But the most important thing that came out yesterday is that Ohio State released a statement that they're going to stick with the Big Ten's protocols. Because I don't really give a damn about Nebraska. David and I talked yesterday, first intermission, and this was our subject. Because if Ohio State had decided to act as rogue as Nebraska is, I don't know what the hell the Big Ten's doing. I don't. Because it's really easy for Warren to sit there and look at Nebraska and say, if they want to do that, they're not in the conference. You got to have a pretty big set to take on the Buckeyes when you're in your first year. The rest of the teams are going to line up behind you to take on Nebraska because they don't consider them a member of the conference anyhow. It's like Rutgers opening their mouth and saying something. So what? Go away.
Hey, come on now. Don't speak badly about Nebraska like that. I mean,
That's
they've
very
got
true.
a little more of a voice than Rutgers.
But from a Big Ten person, they don't consider Nebraska, Maryland, or Rutgers part of it. They consider Penn State part of their conference because they always felt that Penn State should have been in their conference. When they wanted to go to 12. Come on, David. I grew up there. They wanted Notre Dame and Penn State. That's who they wanted as 12. That's who they always wanted as 11 and 12. Always.
It always did look a little funny when the Big Ten Network started, though. All right, and they were, they'd run that Penn State stuff.
Look at the Big Ten Network's its own entity. Leave that out, please.
So Ohio State's going to play ball, and we'll see about Nebraska. But yes, Mark, if Ohio State's going to play ball, then the Big Ten will still remain the Big Ten. Because let's be honest, if Ohio State took their ball and decided to go play elsewhere, the Big Ten would be in trouble. It would. The Big Ten would be the AAC with heritage. That's what the Big Ten would become. And Big Ten fan may not want to hear that. And Michigan fan may be offended by that. But I want you to imagine that conference without Ohio State. First off, deep down, if you're Michigan, you really staying if they're leaving? I mean, come on. That's who you measure yourself against. That's the game. I mean, you really, not going to play the game? Imagine playing football. You don't play them every year. Seriously. Now, I understand, hey, Texas A&M don't play anymore. Pitt and West Virginia don't play anymore. Oklahoma and Nebraska don't play anymore. I get it. But just swallow that for a second. So Ohio State's going to play ball, huh?
That was the first thing I was looking for. I mean, yeah, I spent a lot of time before that cannonball, David.
Are there players going to play ball?
Well, I mean, I don't know if Justin can get to Athens fast enough.
Forget Athens, okay? How about Tennessee? All right? Chaney's there. That's the same offense he ran at Georgia. All right? I mean, this way, and he gets, I believe Tennessee plays at Georgia this year. So he'd get to go back as a Vol. Ha, ha, ha. Play Florida, play Alabama. All right. NHL, I don't know if you heard. Game ended about 23 minutes ago. 5 overtimes, Tampa Bay and Columbus. Midway through the 5th overtime, here's how it sounded.
Keeps it in for Kucherov. Right circle shot blocked. Rebound Sergachev. Right circle Kucherov shoots blocked. Point high slot. Shoot! Score! 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 Brandon Point! Brandon Point! Brandon Point! The Lightning win it! They win it in the 5th overtime! 3-2!
10:27 into the 5th overtime. Lightning over the Blue Jackets in Game 1.
Dave, Michigan,
best of 7 series.
Lightning Radio Network.
They played so long that the Bruins and the Carolina Hurricanes, who were dressed and in the locker room and ready to go.
But in all Toronto youth tournaments, games cannot start once another game has started a third overtime. I think that's the silver stick rule for the Toronto tournament.
I think they just tapped him on the shoulder and said, well, we don't know when this one's going to end. Do you want to sit and wait it out and what have you? And but, yeah, anyway, it got to a point. I think it was during the 4th overtime. Once they reached the intermission after the 4th overtime, they said to the Bruins and the Hurricanes, all right, take your gear off, go home. But don't go far. 11 a.m. tomorrow, you'll play Game 1 of your playoff series. So that's 11 a.m. today. Playoff hockey starts at 11 a.m., baby.
I love it. I want this every year.
I know.
I want triple and quadruple headers. I want them starting early and ending late. This is so fantastic.
And next year, hopefully, we'll see how many people play hooky. Oh, we got a noon playoff game? I only work half a day today. Calgary 3, Dallas 2 to win Game 1 of their series. Vegas 4-1 over Chicago to win Game 1 of their series. There's only one game left for most everybody in the NBA bubble.
Thank God.
At least as far as the regular season, because they're all playing 8 games to get ready for the playoffs. There's a 4-way almost tie for the 8 and 9 seeds in the West. Portland beat Dallas 134-131. Damian Lillard with 61 yesterday. 61. Portland's now the 8 seed. They're a half a game ahead of Memphis, Phoenix, and San Antonio, who are in a 3-way tie for the 9 seed. The Suns are a perfect 7-0 in the bubble, winning again yesterday over the 76ers. For the record, Memphis has the tiebreaker over Phoenix and San Antonio. If Memphis wins, then they're in. If Portland and Memphis win, they're the 8-9 series. So Phoenix and San Antonio need help. The Orlando Magic lost yesterday, 108-96. Major League Baseball. The Jays finally played a home game in Buffalo. They went extra innings. They beat the Marlins 5-4. Rays over the Red Sox 8-2. Yankees over the Braves 9-6. Milwaukee beat the Twins 6-4. And how about them Cubbies? returning to the place where they won the World Series, Cleveland, and beating the Indians 7-1. And finally, Mark, something for you, the big golf fan. FGCU has a couple of golfers who have qualified for the match play portion of the U.S. Amateur.
Nice.
They not only were one, because there was no qualifying for the women's am or the men's amateur this year. You had to be amongst, I think, the top 264 players, and you got invited. And then you play for 36 holes, a stroke play, and the top 64 qualify for the match play. Frankie Kappen qualified 11th, and Van Holmgren qualified 48th. So later today, match play at Bandon Dunes in Oregon. There you go. They're in the match play portion of the U.S. Amateur.
That's terrific.
All you got to do is win 6 matches. I mean, no big deal or anything.
That's terrific.
But congratulations to them. And that, Mark, is
5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton starting 5. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
At 14 minutes before the hour, we'll come back with a poll question. Have a good guest lineup today, which starts at 7:30. Talk a lot of college football. Once again, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 opt out. The other 3 Power Fives are in for now, as is the AAC. And is there a spot available in the playoff for Mike Oresco's conference? UCF, this could be the year. Miller and Moulton. Thanks so much for listening. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program.
This is the
Are you following
Aaron Rodgers,
the Astros shame tour on Twitter?
I see it. I'm not following it, but I see it.
Well, I mean, as you pointed out, they blew. I don't know if they blew a 4-run lead.
Yeah, they lost again last night.
But they blew a 4. They were up 6-2. So the 2 tweets yesterday I saw from the Astros shame tour were Altuve's bunt, and the tweet was something like, Altuve's struggling so bad he's trying to bunt to get on. This one hit his bat twice, so he was out. Like he started, he bunted, running down the base path, came up, hit the bat. He's out. And then they show him blowing a 4-run lead. I mean, it's pretty funny.
Now, after 17 years, My Shower Door has 8 frameless shower door showrooms, with our newest in Cape Coral. If you're looking for a frameless shower door company that you can trust and
Poll question.
want to see more, go to myshowerdor.com.
By the way, 3/4 of our listeners said that you should be able to leave your conference this year to play. You should be able to get a hall pass for a year.
Or did you put a poll question up?
That was our poll question yesterday. Our poll question yesterday was, do you think schools should be allowed to leave their conference to play football for this year only?
Then what's our poll question today? I don't care about yesterday. Look it. I'm in charge around here. The wife just left for the rest of the week. I'm very nervous.
Why? You're in charge.
Exactly. All right. Will the NCAA, do you think the NCAA will allow Big Ten and Pac-12 players to transfer and play immediately?
How about we ask people, should they? Should the NCAA allow?
All right, that's fine. Should the NCAA allow?
So whatever that Hyundai, Kia, Toyota, Nissan, or Honda was worth 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago is exactly what it'll be worth now, but only at Naples Nissan. Ford, Dodge, Chrysler, Chevy, yep.
I think it'll be overwhelmingly yes.
Well, that's why I wanted to go with that. The only reason do you
well then,
because
so
I think if it
what's your
should,
question again?
Do you think the NCAA
will? Gotcha.
And because I'm with you, I think we all would say go. What are you supposed to do?
Do you think the NCAA?
You can't watch baseball while driving. Bowling, running, walking, fishing, golfing, or while doing anything else you like to do while on the go. And this year, you can't even watch baseball in a ballpark, but you can see the game on the radio. Where stands so still at the plate when the Marlins play. Now the pitch. Get the play-by-play. Oh, what a play! On Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, home for Miami Marlins baseball.
No matter where you're boating, with Towboat US, you're covered by the world's largest towing fleet with over 300 ports nationwide. Your local
Well, and because the kicker is here, it ain't just the SEC. I mean, if you're UCF, you don't think a few of those boys wouldn't run down to your school? You know, I mean, you might not get the kids that are at Michigan and Ohio State, but you might get the ones that are at Michigan State and Wisconsin.
Hey, who knows? A couple of those kids who are at Michigan and Ohio State are from Florida.
Right.
They may run to UCF.
During these stressful times, your mood is so critical, and nothing's more important to a guy's mood than testosterone. The single greatest issue for guys with low T is mood, and the single greatest change for men that get low T care is a
So do you think the NCAA will allow players from the Big Ten and the Pac-12
most can't believe how much their mood improves once they get treated, and everything improves once your mood improves.
to transfer and be immediately eligible to play this year for teams playing football? We are in business, David. We've got ourselves a poll question. Got a sponsor for it today and everything? Hang on, who did I have today?
Now back to Miller and Moulton.
All right, now we're getting somewhere.
No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Eight minutes before the top of the hour. Welcome back, Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. You can chime into the show via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line at 479-5551, 479-5551.
Bunch of poll questions to get to. The poll question on this show always brought to you by The Reef on Fort Myers Beach. The Reef, Southwest Florida's best live music venue.
Inactive since?
Oh, God, they've been closed at least 16, 17 years. But back when, I mean, the ceiling was about 7 feet high.
Whoa. The ceiling was
No, I mean,
lower?
it was maybe 8 feet high, David.
Well, I was going to say lower than the Buddha. Yes or
Oh,
no?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Fact. And when Soapy Tuna was rocking, before they got their album, went on tour, I remember seeing them in there. Before and I know most of those guys, but I didn't know who they were then. And it was so loud and so fantastic. And there was one guy at the bar, and my dad was down here then. My dad's in his 60s. There was a guy in the bar that made my dad look like a kid. And he's there every night, about 80 years old, sitting at the bar, listening to the rock music, just sipping his drink. It's fantastic. Loved The Reef. Loved The Reef. Yesterday's poll questions, because I added an emergency one. The first one is, do you think schools should be allowed to leave their conference to play football for this year only? And more than three quarters of you, 76% said yes. We'll see what happens with Nebraska going forward. But I received a text during the day from the soccer association that I signed my daughter up. And they, for about the fourth time, have said they need coaches. I've ignored all of these requests.
Smart move.
But they're 3 coaches short, and there's not that many teams. So it sounds like they're in dire straits, and I at least responded and said, what do you need me to do? But I put the poll question up. Now, they didn't respond to me, which means I think I'm in background checks, and they don't want me as a coach.
Well,
I think they are desperately seeking anybody but me as a coach.
You're spring football, okay? You are the last resort, okay? That's what spring football has been described as. That's our last resort. Mark, you are the last resort.
And I believe the director sounded like Urban Meyer yesterday.
So you asked folks whether or not you should coach.
Right. And same numbers, about 75%, a little less than 75% said that I should coach. And some hilarious comments. By the way, you voted on that and voted no.
I did. Yeah. Well, I know you pretty well. All right. And I was also thinking of your daughter, and in which your daughter and my daughter at that age had similar personalities. And my daughter, who is daddy's girl, but did not want me coaching her, just wanted me off on the sidelines watching. That's it. They did not want me coaching her. And she told me that. Yeah, Daddy, I really don't want you coaching. Okay, cool. Works for me.
I'm all for that. But I don't want to see a league not happen because parents won't volunteer. And that's
right.
I've done it before. I coached my son in hockey, coached my daughter in this. It would be great. But today's poll question, do you think the NCAA, and that's the key part of this, because David and I kind of talked it through. I think we all believe that we'd let players up and leave from all these schools right now. But do you think that the NCAA will allow players from the Big Ten and Pac-12 to transfer, and I guess for that matter, the MAC and the Mountain West and anywhere else, but transfer and be immediately eligible to play this year for teams playing football? Now, David thinks it's easy. I think it's a little tougher than that. I wonder, there's not scholarships available. I mean, there's a lot of, this is tricky. This is not easy.
Oh, no, this is cutthroat. There'll be some serious gray shirting going on, but this just in. If Justin Fields wants to go, somebody's getting their scholarship taken away.
And nobody that roots for that team is going to have a problem with it.
No. Hey, you're on the COVID list, buddy, this year. Don't know what to tell you. We'll take care of you.
This will be the opposite of what happened at Colorado State.
Right. You're going to take one for the team. This could be your biggest contribution to our football program right here. You're giving your scholarship to Justin Fields.
Congratulations. You've done very well by the program. There'll be a new car in front of your dorm tomorrow.
We are Fox. You should be driving a Kia from Galliana. Galliana Kia.
Why pay more for a used car or truck when Galliana Kia in Fort Myers and sell you a new car for less? 2020 Kia Forte LXS lease, just $49 per month. That's right, a new car for just $49 per month. 2020 Kia Rio, just $13,990. Yes, $13,990. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. Galliana Kia has lenders to get almost anyone approved. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you're upside down. Why buy an overpriced used car when you can buy a new car for less? Brand new Kias, just $49 per month.
You should be driving a Kia from Galliana. Galliana Kia.
At Galliana Kia, 1/2 mile south of Daniels Parkway on US 41 in Fort Myers. Open every day, including Sunday. Call 239-481-2600. GallianaCars.com.
Love that we've got Memphis and UCF trash talk going on in the chat room right now. That's fantastic. And I know all you guys in the chat room know I'm rooting for Memphis. I still wish they were Memphis State. I'm a Keith Lee guy going way back.
Oh, look at you. Dana Kirk back in the day.
I mean, you want to talk about a team that was not afraid to cheat.
Oh, no, they were good at it's the team that nobody can remember from the 85 Final Four with the three Big East teams. It was the three Big East teams in Memphis State.
I was rooting so hard for Memphis State.
That's who Villanova beat in the semis. Nobody remembers that because Georgetown and St. John's played in the other semi. And Georgetown whacked them. That's the other reason why.
Look at Memphis Tom coming in with William Bedford. Huh.
Oh, boy.
Wow, you're talking dirty to us now, Tom.
Yeah, I know. One of the biggest busts in NBA history.
Yeah, but he was a great collegian.
He was a talented collegian. Keith Lee was terrific. Dana Kirk's hair, the big perm.
Wouldn't they leave the NCAA? They can't leave the NCAA. First off, the MAC and Mountain West could never leave the NCAA. I mean, the money from the tournament wouldn't be from the basketball tournament. And that's the thing no one's talking. I mean, March Madness is on. It's in critical condition right now. Stable.
Oh.
Stable but critical condition. No. Okay.
I don't know about critical.
Serious?
Oh, definitely. Yes. And I don't know if it's stable.
Well, if it's serious, it's not stable. If it's critical, it's stable, if you know what I mean. If it's serious, it could go to critical at any given moment, David.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was we have watched a lot of medical shows right there.
Boy, I'll tell you a little more.
That was every 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s doctor show wrapped into one.
Boy, Emergency 51 right there.
Yeah. St. Elsewhere, we just did.
Oh, Chicago Hope. What bad doctor shows haven't you watched?
What's the name of the good doctor show? I'm blanking me right now. The Clooney and all of them.
ER.
There you go. How could you forget that? 2 flipping letters. That had that guy in it with that thing.
Right. A lot of stars came out of that show.
Oh my God. It's a factory.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Couple minutes past the top of the hour, top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? We're Miller and Moulton on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. You can always chime into the show, call or text in on the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line, 479-5551, 479-5551. Good conversation going on in the Twitch chat room, in which I love when we go off the beaten path.
Well, it started because we had a UCF fan and a Memphis fan trash talking.
AAC trash talk.
Right. That's
before 7 a.m.
Right. Beautiful. And we have a guy in the chat room, Memphis Tom, who's not a part of this. He's like, how about the guy that's born and raised in Memphis, leaving it out? And then we went right into 1985 Memphis State basketball. In the 85 Final Four with 3 Big East teams and Memphis State. That's the type of quality programming you get during the commercial breaks. It's why right there you should sign up for Twitch TV. Go to the Miller and Moulton page. Follow us. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can get your Twitch subscription for free. It's free anyhow, but you can skip all the commercials if you sign up with Prime.
The sports talk that you can only get from a couple of only children who are now middle-aged white guys. That's right.
Got that right.
Otherwise known as the Twitch TV chat room.
Rich sent us a tweet, and he says simply, I hate when someone is more sarcastic than I am. Well done, Mr. Schilling. He forwarded a tweet from Dave Schilling who says, canceling college football will tarnish the rich legacy of the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl. You're damn right it will. You're damn right it will.
Well, we mentioned the bowls briefly in our first hour. I do think 2 things need to be pointed out. One, as you mentioned, Mark, right now, and let's just assume going forward, first off, we don't have, if you include the AAC, I don't even know if you have enough teams. There are not enough teams playing right now, I think, to fill up the bowl games.
That is correct, David.
I mean, because you've got the Mountain West, the MAC. I mean, you've got 4 of the 10 conferences, Division I conferences that have bailed right now on fall football. So of the 6 remaining conferences, I mean, if you put every single team in a bowl game, you'd still come up short.
You're 5 short. Brett McMurphy tweeted this out last night. 41 bowls, 82 bowl bids will be available, but right now there are only 77 teams scheduled to play football this fall.
So, obviously do the math. There's a whole lot of bowl games. If you were wondering, hey, are bowl games going to get played? We have been of the belief that outside of the playoff games, we wondered if any bowls at all would get played.
Actually, we've differed. You've said you didn't think they were. I've been the one all along going, David, if they play football, they're playing the bowls because ESPN props them up. I've thought the bowl games, if they played the season, I thought bowl games were going to get played because ESPN likes the programming. They make money off of it.
Yes, they do.
And from a school standpoint, if the schools would have been receptive, particularly if there's no fans, because they might not get stuck buying the 15,000 tickets that they have to do every year, where they basically have to lose money by bringing their bands.
But also, many of the bowls are conference matchups. Well, for instance, the one bowl game that CBS has is the Sun Bowl. It's ACC Pac-12. Well, when one of the two conferences says we ain't playing, kind of tough to have that game. And so will these alliances, if ESPN and others want these bowl games to happen, will these bowl games be able to happen? Because there are bowl alliances that are locked in. Once again, it goes back to contracts. You know, the Big Ten commissioner coming out last night and saying if Nebraska or anybody else wants to play football in the fall this year and you do so, you're no longer a member of the conference. And Mark, as you said, it's one thing to say that about Nebraska, but what if it was Ohio State who said, we're going to take our ball, we're going to play this year? Now, I'm of the belief, by the way, that Ohio State will basically be fine. Okay. Now, this may not sit well with Ryan Day. All right. And Ryan Day at some point when he leaves, and we may trace it all the way back to the 2020 season in which he said, I kind of lost my lust for the Big Ten and or Ohio State when they did that. But I think it may cost Ohio State 2 or 3 recruits over the course of the next 12 months. That's it, because it's Ohio State and it's a football factory, and if it's Ohio State.
And guys go to Ohio State to play in the NFL.
Right.
That's why they're going there. And right now, until proven otherwise, there's no school in the Big Ten that's even close at producing football players for the next level like the Buckeyes. Not even close.
Now, do I think, and it'll hurt Penn State a little bit, and it'll hurt Michigan a little bit. The others, though, I think it could hurt significantly. I do think that's possible. I think the trickle down that the rest, because if the other 3 Power 5 conferences and the AAC, by the way, are able to pull this off, if you don't think it's going to be used in recruiting, you're crazy. Crazy. Never mind the mess. You talk to somebody at FGCU right now, or any other school that plays a spring sport from a year ago, in which you now have to make room for guys who you thought were graduating out of the program. And now everybody who was on the roster in the spring of 2020 is getting an extra year of eligibility in their sports. Okay. Well, now what will the NCAA do about Big Ten and Pac-12 football players? They going to give them an extra year? Is this, Mark, we have medical red shirts. Is this going to be a COVID red shirt?
Well, now that's all on whether or not the Big Ten pulls off playing in the spring, David. Because your eligibility thing is for naught if the Big Ten and Pac-12 play their conference schedule in the spring.
But there are a lot of people that believe that the concept of spring football is a joke, is a lark. It's not going to happen.
Probably. But for right now, can I just try to take the liars and the cheaters, as I now know them as the Big Ten and the Pac-12, at their word, even though it's a crock? If they play in the spring, which, David, I agree with you, they're not, but that's what they're telling us, so I'm just going to try to believe them for at least this moment. If they pull that off, the eligibility won't be there. The bigger problem isn't just the people that want to play this year in football, to me, David, in the transfer portal. This isn't just recruiting against the conferences that aren't playing football. If you're a younger player in the Big Ten that now just missed a whole year of football, are you looking to get out? Are you looking to go somewhere else? The transfer part of this could be devastating to these schools, and it's why I don't believe the NCAA is going to let all these players up and leave. I don't.
I think they will.
I know you do, and we kind of did this quickly. David?
It's our poll question, by the way. Do you think the NCAA will allow, and it's not just the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. I mean, it's the Mountain West. Listen, Boise State's got a quarterback, folks. That kid can walk in and play at a whole bunch of schools in the ACC and the SEC and the Big 12. A whole bunch of them. It's not just Justin Fields at Ohio State. If the Boise State quarterback wants to play, you wait to see how many schools make room for him.
Well, look at it this way. We had Phil Steele on Monday. I asked him about Georgia, and he said, I'm not worried about their skilled positions. Really worried about that offensive line. Graduated a bunch of linemen. They lost their line coach. Telling me that there's not some upperclassmen linemen that are going to be NFL players that wouldn't be able to walk right into Athens and start?
I looked this up right before the show. Mark, I don't know about you, but I still have the players who were drafted in the first 3 rounds of this past year's NFL draft. I still have it all written down in front of me here.
It's somewhere in this mess, David.
Right.
It's somewhere in this mess.
I don't know what you keep laying around and for how long you keep it lying around for, but I'll probably keep this through most of the football season, just sitting right here. There were 8 players from the Big Ten and the Pac-12 taken in the first round. There were 8 combined taken in the second round. There were 9 combined taken in the third round. If you're a player, and you can find out, if you're a player that has a grade on you between rounds 1 through 3 right now, you going to play in the spring?
No.
Well, I mean, based on last year's draft, and granted it changes year to year, but that's 25 guys. So it's on average about 1 a team, but we all know that it's a handful from Ohio State.
Right. It's 7 from Ohio State, 4 from Penn State, 4 from Michigan, 2 from Wisconsin, and a half from everywhere else.
Throw in a few from Utah. Winning.
No. I was just going Big Ten. Sorry.
Well, it's 25 between the two conferences.
Between the two.
Combined.
Okay, well, yeah. You're right. A couple of Utah linemen.
But you've got that element also for your team. Never mind. I mean, I'm being serious about this, Mark. How many people in Southwest Florida are Big Ten football fans?
A ton.
And the depression, honestly, today, the depression that I think many of these, because obviously we're all trying to live through this. And what is one of the things that was out there? It's like, well, it looks as if I'm going to get my football. If I can just make it through the week, and the NFL will play on Thursday, and then I'll have my Saturdays, and we'll have something on Sundays and Mondays, and this will be good. Maybe football can get me to the end of 2020. Football can get me to 2021. And Mark, there's a whole bunch of people in Southwest Florida that Saturday means more to them than Sundays.
Hey, just at one bar, just at the Stevie's in that highly desirable Daniels corridor.
Right.
There's a Georgia fan club. There's Michigan State fan club. And I think 2 other schools watch their games there. That doesn't even get into the big boys. That doesn't get into your Ohio State that has 17 bars that they're watching Buckeye games at. You can't walk 10 feet without seeing a block M on someone's head around here. David, I said it yesterday. I think if we just did conference affiliation down here, I think the Big Ten would be right there with the SEC, and it might even be slightly ahead.
I think it would win.
Because obviously there are a ton of Gator fans. We get it. And there are Georgia fans here. And there are some Vol fans here. Outside of that, you don't run into a whole lot of SEC fans. No. Yeah, there's the occasional Bama person. I've actually got 2 Bama people in my neighborhood I noticed by their license plates. Because not only are they the Alabama license plates, they're the Roll Tide license plates.
There you go.
That makes me happy. But a couple LSU here and there, because anytime I see an LSU person, and I've noticed most LSU fans seem to have found the LSU face mask when they're masked up. I've seen a couple of those, and it's great because I can just look at them and go Tigers. Everywhere I go. The mask thing has been great for me when they're wearing their team because I just will randomly give them a shout out because head perks up. You can tell they've smiled even though you can't see it.
Yeah, the only people that are dealing with COVID well emotionally in this country are LSU football fans. They have not stopped smiling from last season.
Nope.
Have not. I mean, this could just, hopefully everyone in their family is healthy. That might be the only thing that could wipe the smile off the face of an LSU football fan. And for as heartbroken as they would be if the SEC didn't play this fall, they would be the people sitting there in their chairs with the you-know-what eating grins on their faces. And everybody would be going, what are you smiling about? And going, I'm just thinking about Joe Burrow last year.
They would
Put that Alabama game on again.
They would be begging CBS to just run last year's schedule of games.
Right.
And if at 2:30 Central, LSU from 2019 were on television, the numbers would, David, I could argue the TV numbers might be bigger, even though they know the results.
CBS sent an email out a few months ago. They're like, hey, if we don't have any football, we may be running, some of our greatest games. What games do you remember? Well, Mark, it might be the greatest email I've ever received in my life. I mean, you're asking me to go back in the mental Rolodex here and go year by year and talk about the great games that we've had. Are you serious? I sent this, just Faulkner novel to them going, you want games? Let me tell you. So
they asked the wrong person.
Exactly.
They should have asked someone like me who could have just given them three and this one, and this one, I think.
I haven't even been allowed on Zoom calls ever since. They took me off every damn list. Who was stupid enough to put this guy on it? Right. So, but our poll question, if you're the NCAA, you going to give transfer waivers here to MAC and Mountain West and Big Ten and Pac-12 players if they raise their hand? Think about their cell phones, by the way, yesterday. Honestly, what do you think it's like for Justin Fields right now? How many schools do you think have reached out to Justin Fields? Which technically you're not allowed to do. He hasn't said he's transferring.
There's 77 schools playing football this year? 77? And if it's 76, the coach for the 77th school should be fired. No.
Well,
Dabo can still call and say, you want to come and just work out with him?
But that's, my goodness. Think about, and I'm serious about this. Also, if you're Justin Fields, we could do a whole show on Justin Fields. We really could. What schools would blow up their quarterback room and everything that they got to, let him walk in 3 weeks before the season starts and go, yeah, he's our guy. I don't know what to tell you. He's better than you. Mark, I'm being very serious when I ask this question. If you're Georgia, okay, you've taken in 2 transfers here, kid from Wake and a kid from USC, okay, and Justin Fields is a 1-year deal. Because then he's going to the NFL.
So is the kid from Wake.
Oh, well, it's true because he's a 5th-year guy. But if you're Kirby, you bring Justin Fields
yes.
back, no questions asked?
Yes.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
And you beg him to come.
Okay. All right, just
bend
asking.
the knee.
Okay. All right. Because, the whole rest of your quarterback room may get up and leave.
So?
Okay. All right.
So what?
I'm just asking. Just asking. LSU's got a couple kids lined up. Alabama's got, a 5-star guy whose time has come. It's his turn. Do you blow it up and just bring Justin Fields in? That's all. If you're Lincoln Riley, you did it to a bunch of recruits last year when you brought in Hurts and you put him at the top of the food chain and these guys had to sit behind him. You going to do it to them again? When one of them's thinking, hey, it's finally my turn. And what if he brought in Justin Fields? What if Justin Fields called them? Say, hey, I could be there in 5 hours. What do you say? That's all. I just find it fascinating. There are places in which it's obvious they don't have a quarterback. seriously, if you're Florida State right now, if you're Mike Norvell, don't you find a way to reach out to Fields and or the Boise State kid? Hey, we got a job open. You want to play? We'll help you learn this offense. Just throwing it out there.
I got a text that, and I'm sorry, David, because I had to double check this to make sure it was right, because it's so asinine that I didn't want to just take our listeners' word for it, because sometimes they don't get things right, and I don't want to read something unless he was right. Wisconsin, they're not playing football this year.
Right.
Barry Alvarez issued a statement yesterday that teams will get to stay on the 20-hour week in the fall for workouts, so we can have kids on campus and athletes working out. But you're not going to play football. Can you help me with that at all? Does that make any?
In theory, though, you're playing in the spring, trying to keep you in shape. Also trying to keep you, in theory, they think they're keeping you safe. That if we can keep you with us, we'll less chance of getting COVID and better medical care and all that. We think you're safer. I mean, isn't that going to be the athletic department's argument? Hey, we were trying to make this argument to the university president and the commissioner. We think you're all safer with us than in just going back in the dorms or going home.
So they're going to let them go to class, or all the class is going to be online?
Well,
I mean,
we were saying yesterday, it's what we would have asked the Big Ten and Pac-12 presidents. Would say, listen, you've got your medical advice. We respect that. I do just have one question, though. If you're not going to let anybody play sports, how can you make the argument of having any kids on campus, period? So, I don't know what all of these schools' policies are. Like USC, I know, they decided first semester everybody's home.
And a lot more schools are going to that almost daily right now.
But I would think if you're a Big Ten or Pac-12 school, you'd have to.
Thank you.
That, to me, would look hypocritical.
Thank you. We're not going to play football with our student athletes, but we're going to pile them all in dormitories.
Right. Because then you're saying, so hold on a second. So you're criticizing the athletic department for wanting to play for financial reasons, but yet you're willing to stuff kids in the dorms for what reason?
Which
again?
reasons? And I am so scared, and this is a little bigger than sports, but I am, and I've mentioned it a lot. These college towns.
Oh, my goodness.
What the hell's going to happen? Now, if there are kids on campus without classes, it'll be a state-by-state thing, and bars will still, whatever their 50% capacity, who knows what happens. But without football, Fridays and Saturdays in Athens, Gainesville, Columbia. Now, that's a bigger city, so maybe that's not fair. But, I mean, these towns live, Auburn, Alabama, for these weekends.
Mark, I saw an economic person on an evening newscast last night say, I want you to imagine your town's biggest employer, by far, announcing that they are getting up and leaving effective immediately. That is the economic hit. Now, granted, in theory, it's just for a year, where obviously we know it would be for a generation to a town if, the factory got shut
It's
down.
what I grew up with. It's the biggest employer in our town, going from 40,000 employees. It now employs, I think, 3,000.
And so for these college towns, for 1 year, and obviously, they were, what have they been going through for the last 5-6 months? And how many of those businesses were, oh boy, if we could just make it to, when the kids come back, if we could just make it to football season, and or basketball season even, if we could just get there, we can make it to September, we can make it to Labor Day, and then we'll get through this. Well, the rug just got pulled out from under you. And it may be justified. You know what? Maybe at the end of the day, the Big Ten and the Pac-12, they're going to look like the Ivy League looked 5 months ago with the basketball tournament. Remember, the Ivy League pulled the rug out from under their tournament, and they did it before everybody else. The NBA and the Ivy League made their decision And for about a day, everybody else was kind of looking around going, what are you doing? And then people jumped on board, and upon further review, we said, well, wow, those guys were right. That was a good call by them. You know what? Maybe Commissioner Warren, Commissioner Scott, they're going to get the last laugh here. But
they did essentially back Northern Illinois in the MAC. I mean, what changed between Friday and Monday was Northern Illinois said, we're not playing football. Not happening. The MAC said, well, I guess none of us are playing football. And then the Big Ten said, maybe we shouldn't play football either. That's how the order went.
Well, and I believe in the case of Northern Illinois, though, I believe the president is it an epidemiologist? You know, what is it that is somebody who has experience with what we're going through now and just said, hey, this is too dangerous. We can't do this. And the others in the MAC said, well, you're the expert. Okay. All right. We'll follow you. And then, you know, the old TV commercial, what was it? Shampoo and so on and so on and so on. I mean, that's what's now transpired. And maybe they're right.
Maybe they are. But Northern Illinois is why the Big Ten's not playing football right now. Because they were playing football before Northern Illinois made this announcement. That's the big change.
Joshua Perry was part of a national champion at Ohio State a handful of years ago. He works for the Big Ten Network. We'll talk to Joshua Perry next. Miller and Moulton. Thanks so much for waking up with us on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
This is
Be right back.
All right.
The playbook in the NFL.
Oh, Spitz, you're right. There's no doubt about that. But it started because Northern Illinois pulled.
It just got Patrick Mahomes a Super Bowl.
You're one, and that's why I've said it all week. The MAC is lying to everybody when they're saying it's COVID. Northern Illinois may have been COVID. The rest of the conference is money.
Colin Cowherd. Weekdays at noon on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Let's face it, these are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep you and your family safe all the time. It's Frank for Center for Men's Health. During these stressful times, your mood is so critical, and nothing's more important to a guy's mood than testosterone. The single greatest issue for guys with low T is mood. And the single greatest change for men that get low T care is a greatly improved mood. Many are grumpy when they start, and most can't believe how much their mood improves once they get treated. And everything improves once your mood improves.
Who was at IU's money game? Because I don't follow Northern Illinois football. I could look it up. I just don't feel like it.
For a couple of years, and recently I've lost 20 pounds because now I have the energy to work out from home, and that'll put you in a good mood too. C4MH.com's express treatment plan is convenient, affordable, and above all safe. And with locations all up and down West Florida, there's one near you right now. Find out more. Go to C4MH.com.
Hey, check this out, Southwest Florida. You know that sweet trade-in deal we've been doing here at Naples Nissan? Well, it just got sweeter. If your trade-in is less than 8 years old with less than 80,000 miles on it, guess what? Naples Nissan is going to give you the original base MSRP for it. Wait, what? Yeah. So whatever that Hyundai, Kia, Toyota, Nissan, or Honda was worth 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago is exactly what it'll be worth now, but only at Naples Nissan. Ford, Dodge.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's.
Yep.
You're right. But
let's see here. A brand new Nissan or that old 2012 you're driving now that needs new tires. Bluetooth. No Bluetooth. Backup camera. No backup camera.
Yeah, Spitz, you're right.
It's a no-brainer, folks.
Not going to El Paso. That's another game.
Or come see us on Pine
Ridge. This is crushing one David Moulton. Just let it.
Oh, financially.
This is a.
But I will say this about El Paso. It's on CBS. If they can get around the Bowl Alliance thing,
they're going to be able to. If
it's one of the better slots, it's one of the better ratings for the non-playoff games is actually the Sun Bowl. Okay, teams would go, ooh, I get 2:30 on CBS on New Year's Eve. Okay, that's worth playing. That's worth it for us. We're going to get 4 million eyeballs for this game. This ain't the New Mexico Bowl here.
Right.
This ain't the Shreveport, Bowl.
We inside? We had a minute yet, Jero?
Yeah, we are at 7:30.
Step up your game and enroll now. Find Stephen DeViti Hydro Athletics on Instagram or visit asc-florida.com.
I'm a busy person.
Catch the show
Morning.
Josh, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you so much. We're inside of a minute. This is got to be a kind of a shitty day for you.
That's not great.
Man, oh man.
We'll be all right.
Yeah.
And new membership pricing starts as low as $99. Call 239-945-1664 for more information or visit ToboUSCapeCoral.com. With Tobo
Should be after this one. Thanks again as always, Josh. Appreciate it.
No doubt.
Dan Martineau here, owner of DR Martineau Roofing of Southwest Florida. I've been repairing and replacing roofs for 27 years. We operate with integrity, knowledge, and service. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-1441.
License number CCC 1326954.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know is DR Martineau.
Here we go. Now back to Miller and Moulton. No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
29 minutes before the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Today was the day when, coming up in about 15, 20 minutes time. It's a pleasure to welcome back a national champion with the Ohio State Buckeyes on their 2014 team. He now works for the Big Ten Network. He's Joshua Perry. You can follow him on Twitter at RIP_JEP. Joshua, it's been a little while. David and Mark, first things first, thanks for your time, and how are you and your family faring during all this?
It's a hard pill to swallow for sure. And we're just kind of sitting back, evaluating and kind of devising a plan from here. It's tough, and it was unique leading up to it because you have so many different voices with a lot of opinions about the coronavirus in general and the efficacy of playing college football. But you got people's lives in the balance, and we'll be fine over here. And I'm worried about some of my colleagues in the industry, but I'm also thinking about the young men right now who work really hard to try to get out there and compete for themselves, compete for their families, compete for their schools. So it's a really tough situation all around. And we're going to have to come up with a lot of answers here because a lot of people are asking them.
Joshua, how surprised were you? It seemed that the decision was going to be inevitable, but after it seemed like the trial balloon. I mean, Dan Patrick kind of broke this, and all of a sudden people freaked out. It seemed that college presidents were taking phone calls maybe they never had to take in the last 24 hours. How surprised were you that they didn't kick the can down the road and try to delay it for a few weeks as opposed to making the decision to cancel it yesterday?
Well, I feel like it would have been disingenuous to just delay it. I mean, the reality of the situation is all the news, and it seems like the information that the Big Ten had valued was leaning toward postponing or canceling the season. So it just, to me, it wouldn't have made sense. It would have been more of a performance than it would have been a legitimate opportunity to try to play football. And I think that's what we kind of have to get out here. We saw a lot of coaches and ADs talking about finding whatever the best option is and exhausting all options for their guys to play this fall. And, as soon as the news comes down, a lot of them are saying, well, we don't have a lot of options. We'll just play in the spring. That seems like performance. I honestly feel like the conferences that are holding out right now, with the information that exists in the world and two of the Power 5 conferences pulling out, it'd be really hard to make a case to play at this point. So it seems a little bit like performance. And their tone says the same thing because they're telling us right now that they still don't know if they'll be able to play football in a month or so. So it's a really weird position that we're in. Reality is, if you feel like you have that information and the signs are pointing to not playing, then it would be disingenuous to have guys still in training camp working hard knowing that you're going to pull the plug anyway.
Joshua, and this is a hypothetical, so I don't know how this question will be received, but try to, if you could, to put yourself back in time 6 years. And you were getting ready for the 2014 season, and you knew you had a good team, and you're ready to play. And then this were to happen. would your gut instinct be to take it on the chin and just plow through and stay there and, this is the hand we're dealt? Or would your gut reaction have been, yeah, I got to go play. I got, and if Oklahoma or wherever, if they're looking to play, I'm out of here. I got to play.
That's a really good question. I feel like so much of the response up to this point has been an overreaction. So if you're a player and your first instinct is to jump ship and try to transfer elsewhere, I would say let's wait a month and a half to see if any of these other conferences are actually going to play games before we do such a thing, because you could end up jumping ship to a team that's not actually going to be playing games this fall, and now you're in the same position just with a different team. But I was a Central Ohio kid. I grew up being a Buckeye through and through, so it wasn't even in my DNA to want to play anywhere else. I would have definitely stuck it out and taken my lumps and really used it as an opportunity to build skill and really try to expand my game and do all the little things in the fall that I wouldn't typically be able to do. But I don't blame anybody for wanting to go somewhere else where they feel like they have an opportunity to play the game that they love, to put on tape their athletic ability so the next level can evaluate them. There are so many different options to go here, and I don't think there's a wrong answer for any of these athletes that are involved.
Ohio State, of all the Big Ten teams, obviously is a national powerhouse and a football factory right now. If somehow, some way, spring football happens, and that's what the Big Ten is trying to pull off, whether or not that happens, we don't know. But assuming that it does for this question, how many Buckeyes do you think sit out because they're going to want to get drafted? And I know it applies for other Big Ten schools, but certainly in Columbus, the majority of the NFL draft picks in rounds 1, 2, and 3 of Big Ten guys come from Columbus. If you were in that position, would you play in the spring, or would you be getting ready for the NFL?
Well, if I was a senior, I would be getting ready for the NFL 100%. If I was a draft-eligible junior who had a really good year on tape in 2019, I would be getting ready for the draft as well. And I think that's what you'll see out of a lot of guys in Columbus. And it's a sad situation because, especially for senior players who stuck it out and were there for that last year, you really want them to go out with the typical experience. But the prospect of playing in the NFL and being able to go out there and make money finally for the first time playing the game that you love, it doesn't make sense to risk that in a spring season. And personally, I think spring is really hard to pull off. But even if they can pull it off, how stupid would it look for your team to walk around wearing 2021 spring football champion T-shirts? You feel like a spring season in the grand scheme of things doesn't even matter. So just from that regard, I would say for guys who are ready to go to the league, go ahead and do it. It's just that seems like a really, really wonky situation to me.
It's funny the way you phrased it, because you could say, hey, Big Ten champs, Pac-12 champs, or spring football champs. That's funny the way you phrased it. Joshua Perry from the Big Ten Network. Follow him on Twitter at RIP_JEP. Joshua, are you surprised that they didn't try? That on August 11th that they pulled the plug, that they didn't wait a couple weeks, that they didn't try and then just say, wait till the kids get back on campus. The COVID cases go through the roof and they go, well, we tried, but we just can't pull this off. Are you surprised that they came to the conclusion that they came to, anticipating they can't play without actually proving they can't play?
Part of me says yes, just because of the very optimistic schedule that was put out. We're going to start early, but if we can't, we've essentially got 6 weeks of flexibility built into these schedules so we can play a complete season and finish with the conference championship. All that got me excited, and I felt like it was a really good plan. It was a very intelligent plan, and it gave you hope that a season would be played. But the other part of me says that there's really no surprise, just given kind of the tone that Conference Commissioner Kevin Warren has had throughout this pandemic and leading up to these moments. And then when you really evaluate the people that are making decisions on this, which is university presidents, it's even less surprising. A lot of those people have medical backgrounds, so it's not just the advice of the medical advisory boards and the doctors that the Big Ten are listening to. It's the actual university presidents who have been on the front lines in their past who are having to take this information in and evaluate it. And so I feel like just from a medical standpoint, anybody with that type of background is going to be more cautious in this type of situation. So it all kind of came together to be one of those situations where it hurts your damn feelings because you want to watch football so much. But at the end of the day, it's not like the biggest surprise ever.
Joshua, if somehow, some way, the other 3 Power 5 conferences play and get through a fall season, can Kevin Warren survive as the Big Ten commissioner?
It'd be tough. Honestly, I don't think the Big Ten survives if the other 3 conferences play. Ohio State will be around just because they have a track record of putting guys into the NFL and competing for national titles. And that won't change through the pandemic and a season of not playing. But everybody else is they're not going to be able to recruit anybody. Because well, first off, you're not a competitor, and second off, you're not a competitor in a conference that doesn't value football. And that's what all the people from the South are going to say when they're trying to recruit players. So I think just from that standpoint, it's going to hurt the product if you have football being played this fall. But I think there's a very strong chance that he's going to be kind of the guy who was leading the way on all of this as we look back in history, because I'm just not sure how college football gets played at this point.
All right, I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You feel that if the other 3 are able to pull a fall season off, that the Big Ten as we know it is essentially not going to exist anymore. I mean, are you saying that it will no longer be the Big Ten, or are you saying that basically its image, its powerful place in the sport is going to be just severely diminished?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the Big Ten as a conference will exist, but it's not going to be the prestigious conference that we know it to be with the biggest TV deal out of all the Power 5 conferences. Like, I just can't see a situation where that happens because all the talent is going to be extracted from the conference.
He's Joshua Perry, former Ohio State linebacker, now part of the Big Ten Network. You can follow him on Twitter at RIP_JEP. What do you think Nebraska's going to do?
This has been interesting to watch it play out because, we had all the coaches and the ADs fighting, and then everybody puts out these statements. We're disappointed, but we understand, or we're disappointed, but they made the tough right decision, except for Nebraska, where they're like, we're pissed off and we're going to make sure our guys have some opportunity. And they're exploring. Kevin Warren was very direct, though, last night. I believe it was with Yahoo Sports, where he said they can go ahead and do whatever they want, but that $50 million check, that's done. So, their opportunity to earn that is gone. And I believe he's pointing to in the future when things get that right. So I'd be curious to see if Nebraska would put that on the line just to play some games this year that you have a feeling that they don't mean as much just because 2 of the Power 5s aren't playing. But, Nebraska is a school that's tradition rich, and they obviously love football, and those guys want to compete. Scott Frost has made it very clear that he wants to compete. So I'll be curious to see how it plays out. I think it'll be a tough play to call, but they're trying to call it right now.
Think Kevin Warren would have been that adamant if Ohio State would have been the one saying we're going to play football this year?
I think those conversations happen behind closed doors, which is the way that it should have. But that would have, if Ohio State would have made a concerted effort to go elsewhere, that would have been a death sentence for Kevin Warren's career, just because you can't have your biggest brand going to playing for another conference for one season.
Joshua, all the best to you and your family. Safe travels, and hopefully we can talk again.
Definitely. Appreciate being on.
Joshua Perry with the Big Ten Network. Follow him on Twitter, RIP_JEP. Joshua Perry joining us once again here on Miller and Moulton. How about that? He thinks that the Big Ten's prominence in college athletics is resting in the balance over the next 4 months.
Well, the Pac-12's become irrelevant. It has. Largely irrelevant. We haven't had a year in which we've been worrying about a Pac-12 team in a while. Oregon loses early. Washington loses early. We're like, well, they're done. And now, everybody not named Ohio State, he is saying, yeah, they're done.
that the image hit that the Big Ten will take with the athletes on the recruiting trail, that they just won't look at the Big Ten anymore the way they've looked at the Big Ten. That Ohio State could get away with it. He didn't say this. I'll just venture this out there. Penn State can probably get through. They got enough players in their backyard. And Franklin can really recruit. Do you agree with him?
To a point.
Do you agree that the damage will be that severe?
Yes.
Because he's not saying they're going to take a hit. He's saying that basically they're going to be knocked out. And when they get back up to their feet and they go to fight again, they'll never be the same fighter.
It'll take, I don't know about ever, but it will take the better part of the rest of this decade for teams to recover.
Miller and Moulton. Today was the day when. Coming up, top of the hour, Drew Davison. He covers the Big 12 for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. They're apparently all in.
Another great paper name, by the way.
Yes, the Star-Telegram. Drew Davison in 15 minutes. Seth Everett next hour as well. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Drive home with the Doug Gottlieb Show.
The NBA's bubble exposes you. Are you a guy that cannot manage your body? The bubble also exposes if you really love hoop. You know what else got exposed? Giannis Antetokounmpo. The bubble exposed him as being not inexperienced, but inexperienced in a game played at that level.
Doug Gottlieb, afternoon.
You know, I think we missed.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
I think we missed what our poll question should have been today.
What should it be? I can change it. I can do another one.
No. Well, I'm just wondering if it should have been something along the lines of, all right, if you watch the entirety of a 5 overtime hockey game, you know, are you A, you know, whatever, a great, you know, sports fan, this, that, and the other thing, or B, pathetic?
See both?
Because needless to say, I've received a couple texts going, you watched that whole flipping thing? Yeah. I'm glad I updated you.
No, I knew it was on. I knew. I got run
busy and what have you, and I just said, "Hey, 1-1 in the second." You go,
so,
right.
I got a quick one for you. And this is really for everybody in the Twitch chat room as well. So yesterday I had to go give blood for labs. So I go to Quest Diagnostics. I didn't have an appointment, so I sat there in the parking lot and made an appointment for 1:45. It was like noontime. So I go back at about 1:15 because I figured if I had the appointment I could get in and out. Sure enough, I did. Now I'm driving to Estero Bay Chevrolet because I got to have them check something on my car. I get a phone call on the way, and I'm like, hello? Is this Mark Miller? Yes. Are you still in the parking lot of Quest? I'm like, no. Someone found a credit card of yours in the parking lot. I was pulling my wallet out of my pocket, and all of the things on one side fell out into my pocket except for one debit card, and that was in the parking lot, and the guy just grabbed it and turned it in. Just thought I'd let you know that, David.
These are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep you and your family safe all the time. It's Frank for Center for Men's Health. During these stressful times, your mood is so critical, and nothing's more important.
Right. If you bet on the under of Ohio State football futures, do you get paid? That's a great question. Probably not.
Well, you have to wait till the spring.
Is a greatly improved mood. Many are grumpy when they start, and most can't believe how much their mood improves once they get treated. And everything improves once your mood improves. Feel the difference C4MH.com can make in your life. I've been a patient of C4MH.com for a couple of years, and recently I've lost 20 pounds because now I
think my Cannonball is my most liked tweet ever.
in a good mood too. C4MH.com's express treatment plan is convenient, affordable, and above all safe. And with locations all up and down West Florida, there's one near you right now. Find out more. Go to C4MH.com.
We've got our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Floor Meisters in Naples, on the phone. We're talking about their huge selection and great pricing on Cortec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90.
So we have a 9:30 meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then we have taping at 11:30.
Okay.
With lifetime warranty.
Maddie, you're on your own.
The many colors
Right.
of Cortec that you have. You also have other Cortec products as well.
We also carry the Cortex Stone product. Looks like.
By the way, is Frank still around?
Frank the dog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't see or hear anything of Frank anymore. Don't hear no noise, nothing.
He doesn't come up because you're not here. He wants nothing to do with me. He does when I'm done with the show, but he came up yesterday. He was a little nervous about something.
Huh. Did he need to go out? And he was kind of like, hey, time to take me out?
No, because Eve was here. He just was...
Gotcha.
You're live.
9 minutes before the top of the hour. Drew Davison, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, to join us in about 10 minutes' time. Seth Everett will join us next hour as well. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is an hour away here on Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Chime in via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line 479-5551, 479-5551. Time now for
Miller and Moulton's Today Was the Day When, giving you the history of today's date so you're a beacon of useless knowledge around the office.
Useless, but a lot of fun to talk about.
This is Today Was the Day When. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
We start today, David, in 1492. I think you know what comes after that, but Christopher Columbus arrives in the Canary Islands on his first voyage to the New World.
Huh.
We jump a few hundred years, 1833, the town of Chicago is incorporated. It's not reported here, but I believe 6 people were shot the same day.
Oh.
1877, Thomas Edison completes his first model for the phonograph. 1908, Henry Ford builds the first Model T. Little, our first two snowbirds.
Right.
As I like to call them.
Ford, right.
Yeah. 1950, first international game by an NFL team. The New York Giants beat the CFL's Ottawa Roughriders 20-6 in Ottawa. 1963, Stan Musial announces he will retire at the end of the year. The next year, Mickey Mantle switch hitting home run for a record 10th and final time in a game.
So he hit one from each side of the plate.
Yeah, 10 times in his career. That's so damn remarkable.
Nobody switch hits.
No. Doesn't even exist.
No. Was Chipper the last great switch hitter?
Yes.
Is there somebody now who's a great switch hitter?
If it is, someone will come in, but I think you're on to something. 1968, a great day in music history, because Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, John Ball Jones, and John Bonham played together for the first time, rehearsing in a studio in London. We know these guys now as Led Zeppelin. 1969, the Celtics sold for a record $6 million. 1970, Curt Flood loses his $41 million antitrust suit against baseball, but it would end up leading to free agency.
Also led to the end of his career.
Yes, it did. Absolutely. 1973, Jack wins his third of 5 PGAs at Canterbury Golf Club. 84, I just bring this up. The Braves beat the Padres 5-3, but the game featured 2 brawls and 19 ejections.
Nice.
That's baseball.
Nice. Got 50 guys there, 19 ejections. That's fantastic.
Right. 88, Sox beat the Tigers 9-4 for an AL record 23rd consecutive win at home. Today in 1994 was the first NFL game on Fox. Niners and Broncos NFL exhibition.
That's the first time we saw the score in the top left corner. And we went, what? What is this?
It's the greatest thing ever. It's like time and temperature. 07, Tiger wins his 4th PGA at Southern Hills. 2008, Michael Phelps wins his 3rd of 8 golds when he takes the 200-meter freestyle. Rory wins the PGA at Kiowa today in 2012. And 4 years ago, Katie Ledecky dominates with 4 golds and a silver to make her the most decorated U.S. female athlete at one Olympic Games.
Did you see what she did last week when she swam the lap in the pool with the glass of water or milk on her head? and it never spilled? She did it in
not.
a lap, and at a decent rate, too. Now, Mark Spitz then in his own home did the same thing like a couple days later, going, not as fast and not as far, but, us swimmers, we can do it too. But imagine that, a glass, water or milk, put it on top of your head. Obviously, you never submerge, okay, and you swim a whole lap and it doesn't fall off your head.
No, I can't imagine that. Swimming a whole lap's hard enough for me right now, David. If you were born today, you share your birthday with the great musician and guitar player Mark Knopfler from the Dire Straits. He is 71 years old today. Miss Cleo, David, is 58. Did you ever call Miss Cleo?
No.
Do you know anybody that called Miss Cleo?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to get into that during the break. Sir Mix-a-Lot. Yeah, baby got back. 57. Pete Sampras is 49. The other Affleck, Casey, he is 45 years old today. Plaxico Burress, 43. And Tyson Fury is 32 years old today. And that is today was the day when. Brought to you by, let's see. Well, the Witch's Brew in Naples. Your best spot to pick up a widow. The Witch's Brew. Naples place for Cougars since 1973.
Unbelievable. I hope folks are enjoying these.
I had a little conversation about the reef on the text line after the last one, David.
I'll bet you did.
A couple of people remember these places.
I'll bet you did. Our poll question, ladies and gentlemen, that Mark Miller, the David Moulton on Twitter, millerandmoulton.com. Do you think the NCAA will allow players from the Big Ten and the Pac-12 to transfer and be immediately eligible to play this year for those teams that are playing football? So far, 61% of you say no. You do not think that the NCAA will do so. I am one of the 39% that say yes.
I don't think they will either. I really don't, because of what Joshua Perry talked about. The Big Ten's already in trouble. You let all these guys leave. And I don't think the NCAA will do that to the Big Ten. Miller and Moulton, Fox Sports Radio.
We are Fox Sports.
It's Fred Kobe with your Kobe Cooling Tip of the Day. There's a trend in the air conditioning business with the rip-off companies to become plumbers, electricians, and air conditioning companies all at the same time. The stories we hear about huge plumbing and electric work rip-offs go right along with the scams these firms tend to run with the AC side of their business. If your company is advertising AC, plumbing, and electric, it's very likely one of those scam artist telemarketing companies with the bait-and-switch cheap service call. If you need a plumber, hire a plumber. If you need an electrician, hire an electrician. If you need to throw money down a hole, pick one of those multi-trade firms, and they're more than willing to take your money. When you think of air conditioning companies, we hope you think of Kobe Cooling. No nonsense and no pressure. We're the company your neighbors use. Bryant, whatever it takes. License CACO 57313. Kobe, the most trusted name in the business since 1949.
A date which will live in infamy. People who knock these buildings down will hear all of it.
Amazing comebacks. Comebacks that inspired the American story. And before you know it, another great American comeback story
In stopping the virus,
will be in the books.
we will have a great victory
Our story continues
and return to our lives, great lives.
on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Pool need a checkup? Call the doctor, the Pool Doctor.
Hi, Dr. Mark here. Is your pool a pain to operate? Automation is the answer. Use your phone to turn on your spa, and it'll be warm when you get home. Free on-site evaluations. We're a family company, and for over 40 years, we've been doing business right.
The prescription is the Pool Doctor for award-winning pool service, repairs, and unheard of $39 diagnostic calls. That's mypooldoctor.com or 239-574-1133. State certified CPC 057088.
Hoops in the hallways, battling in the break room, and target practice in the urinals. WFSX AM from the Rock to downtown Fort Myers.
We are Fox Sports.
Here's what's trending now. Brought to you by the Center for Men's Health. C4MH.com.
Blah, blah, flip and blah. Who we got to call here? Gus. Drew Davison. All right.
This is Drew.
Drew, Mark and David in Southwest Florida. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, Mark. Yourself?
Doing well. Thank you so much for your time. We're going on
Anytime.
We're going on in 15 seconds, so really appreciate it.
Okay, cool. Yep.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller.
I drove, which made me happier. I didn't let anybody else behind the wheel of the car.
And Moulton.
Look at you. I'm the man of the house.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Oh, I like
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
And as we approach a couple minutes past the hour, thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. A reminder, Marlins baseball tonight, 6 o'clock. They're in Buffalo. That's right, Buffalo, to take on the Blue Jays. Don't forget about our poll question. Do you think the NCAA is going to allow the athletes from the Big Ten and the Pac-12 to transfer to those schools that are playing football in the fall? Yes or no? Drew Davison covers one of those schools that is still planning on playing football in the fall. He covers TCU in the Big 12 for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. You can follow Drew on Twitter at Drew Davison. Drew, thanks for your time, particularly at this hour. Hope you and your family are safe during all this. How are you?
Hey, we're doing good, and thanks for that, and thanks for having me on the show.
Well, obviously the last 72 hours have been crazy, and we now know the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are out. The Big 12 looks as if it's in. What were the reasons, if any, that you discovered behind their decision to try to go forward this fall?
Well, I mean, number one, they feel like they can and do so safely and play amid the COVID-19 pandemic. And as one source told me, you know, he's like, we've got to learn to live with this virus. And if you cancel the season this fall, and you know, spring is up in the air, and even if that's realistic or not, it is up to debate. But you know, it's pretty much exchanging one set of problems for another when you look at, you know, whether it's mental health issues or the financial ramifications or whatnot. So, you know, that's kind of part of it. And the other part, you know, the Big Ten, for instance, Rutgers and Maryland are a couple programs that, you know, are located in areas or having issues just getting guys practicing again and getting going in that regard. And then you look at the Pac-12, and the schools in Los Angeles, for instance, are you know, having to or not being able to practice right off the bat. The Big 12 does not have that sort of issue. So that, you know, I think there's a combination of factors. But with that being said, obviously this thing's still fluid. You know, they might end up canceling like those other two, but as of now, they feel like they're going to be able to go forward.
Drew, how much of this, at least in terms of the Big 12, do you think that it's political in any way? You know, there are some that believe that what's going on is political, that you've got two conferences in which you've got a decent number of quote-unquote blue states. They're going in one direction. You've got the other three conferences who have the majority, in some cases overwhelming majority, of red states. Do you think politics is playing a role in this, or is it just a different outlook, a genuinely different outlook that people, depending on where you live, have?
Yeah, you know, I would say the latter. I think, and just from what I'm told and have been told from day one, I mean, they're going off what the doctors tell them. So, you know, they're not going to let politics or, you know, or even for that matter, like players and coaches that we want to play social media campaign. I mean, at the end of the day, that's not going to change what the doctors and scientists are telling these leagues. And And as of now, the Big 12, their medical advisors, as far as they're concerned, have not said it's not okay or it's not safe to proceed with practicing. So, that's kind of the advice they're going off of. And I know when they kind of make an announcement this morning about, trying to continue and play this fall, the Big 12 will have some added enhanced COVID-19 protocols and where they can test for some different side effects and things of that nature. But, and I know the Big 10 and Pac-12 kind of rely heavily on their doctors, so I guess there's some difference of opinions there. But at the end of the day, I just know the Big 12 has and at least has said publicly that, they're going to rely on what the doctors tell them.
Drew, is there a uniform policy in place for the Big 12 of what the safety protocols are to be for the football season, or is each school handling their own team separately?
Well, I think today, kind of like I was mentioning, I think today they're going to kind of come out with, maybe a uniformed approach. I do know, before today or whatnot, every school is comparable. I don't know if they had the exact same approach, so to speak, just because they live in different states and, maybe different states have, different guidelines and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I mean, they all are committed to testing and socially distancing and doing what they have to do to abide by the state and federal guidelines and how to proceed during the pandemic. But I do think we'll see a more uniformed approach later today.
He's Drew Davison. He covers TCU and the Big 12 for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Follow Drew on Twitter at Drew Davison, Drew Davison. Is this an opportunity for the Big 12 here, whether intended or not, that, hey, its status amongst the group of the Power Five is, you got the SEC and you got the Big 10, and then, the Big 12's kind of lumped in with the ACC. It's above the Pac-12, but it's not one of the big boys. Is this a chance for the conference's national profile to be elevated here if, in fact, they're able to pull off some semblance of a fall college football season?
Well, I do think it's going to, look that way, especially if these three conferences, like you said, are able to pull it off and go forward. That, hey, you got two other leagues not playing, and here you got three that are able to do it. So I do think it would help in that regard, and certainly, the Big 12 has kind of been, obviously during the expansion talk and things like that, they've hung in the balance. But I would argue here over the last 2 years, it's really kind of stabilized, so to speak. But yeah, I don't think they're, up there with the SEC in terms of football prestige or whatnot. But, Oklahoma's made the playoffs, I think, 3 of the last 4 years. And obviously in other sports they've been competitive. But I do think, this has a chance, but with that being said, we do have to make sure there's a season first and foremost here in a couple weeks.
For sake of a season, I'm going to ask a real football question. We had Phil Steele on earlier this week. He was high on TCU, said that they should be a surprise team in the Big 12. Your thoughts on TCU and anybody else other than Texas that has a shot to take down Oklahoma?
Well, yeah, I certainly would agree with Phil Steele that TCU is a dark horse or kind of a sleeper, whatever label you want to put on it. I mean, they've got a young quarterback, Max Duggan, who played a lot as a true freshman, and he kind of went through your expected growing pains. But, TCU is very high on him and feel like he's got a bright future ahead and can take another step forward. And then defensively, they've got one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league coming back. They got two of the top safeties in the country. They've got a great linebacker in Garrett Walla who led the Big 12 tackles. They've obviously got Gary Patterson, who's known for his defense. I do think TCU is a dangerous team, but certainly not a favorite just because they've got questions on offensive line, and they still do have a young quarterback, and they're kind of like a team. Hey, let's see what you got this year. And as far as another team, I think Oklahoma State's going to be right there in the mix. I mean, Spencer Sanders is a real solid quarterback, and then if you look at Chuba Hubbard, one of the top running backs, arguably the top running back in the country. Kylan Wallace is coming off an injury, but if he's back to 100%, he's one of the top wide receivers. So I do think Oklahoma State, kind of has those pieces in place to make some noise as well.
Drew, if the president of Nebraska calls up Bob Bowlesby and says, hey, we want back in. We want back in the Big 12. What do you think Bowlesby will say?
Well, it's funny. I've kind of, talked to some of my guys about this, and, as much as cute as it sounds and as good as it sounds, they just don't see how it's realistic. I mean, the Big Ten kind of owns Nebraska's media rights, and trying to get out of that type of contract and into another conference this quick, especially for a season that's up in there, seems a little far-fetched. But, if you're the Big 12, obviously you answer that call and see what's going on. I mean, but I would say, it's not the Big 12 not open its doors just for a 1-year haphazard type, playing ground for Nebraska.
No. Drew, I'm asking if they
would expect them to be,
right,
hey,
if this
you're
was
coming
the
back,
divorce.
you're coming back for good, not
right.
just a 1-year shotgun marriage. So, but yeah, I mean, I think clearly if you're Bob Bowlesby and they call you, answer the phone, and you welcome them back if it works out. But with that being said, just talking to some guys within the conference, they don't see how it's realistic as much as it is, cute to write about on social media and hypothetical. The realistic is it's probably not going to happen, but hypothetically, absolutely, you take that call.
Drew, thanks for your time, especially at this hour. We really appreciate it. All the best to you. Safe travels.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Drew Davison covers TCU in the Big 12 for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. He has a story out last night that I think you'll find interesting. You can follow Drew on Twitter at Drew Davison, Davison, no second D, Davison. Drew Davison joining us here on Miller and Moulton.
I got the impression from Drew that he doesn't think the Big 12's playing football. That's just me reading between the voices and how he spoke, that I got this sense that, yeah, they're trying on August 12th, but by the time September 5th comes, there's no way they're playing football. That was the impression I got, right or wrong.
Well, once again, it comes down to how many COVID cases can you live with? And if the answer is I can't live with more than 1 or 2, well, then, yeah, no one's playing. We've said this for 4 or 5 months. This comes down to how are you going to react when someone tests positive? Like Rutgers shut it down when they had 28 tests. Michigan State shut it down when they had 16. All right. Major League Baseball, remember, there was one Marlin that tested positive. They didn't shut it down until they had 4. Now, the first 24 hours they were shut down, 4 became 14, but they didn't shut it down until they got to 4. Now, I think upon further review, they made a mistake. They've shut the Cardinals down for a week and a half now, and originally it was 3 to 5, and now it's grown. I mean, that to me, Mark, is ultimately the question, because you cancel a game when you think competitive balance has been altered, that they've got so many guys out, they can't be competitive today. That's when, as a conference, you cancel the game. So how many guys does that have to be?
When you're carrying 90, 95 guys on a college football team, I have no idea. Is it 30? Is it 20? I don't know. And it's also a health problem when it's that many, because we know if it's 20, that others are going to eventually get it or have it, and it'll test positive. That just seems to be the way this has worked. So can I get you another quick hypothetical? I know we got Seth Everett coming up in 10, 12 minutes. Someone texted this to me. We have not talked about this on the show yet at all. The Rock bought the XFL.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think it's a horrible business decision because I think you're wasting money on a spring football league. However, we're in a pandemic.
Right.
And there's a bunch of college football players that aren't going to play football this year. And the texter just wondered, was this the best buy ever because all these kids who don't play are going to need film and he's going to end up with a bunch of college football players playing in the XFL this spring. And as I'm watching now 4 conferences, the MAC, the Mountain West, and the 2 big boys already done, and there could be more. Is there any there to that text, David?
I don't think so. A couple of reasons. First off, the guys that in theory would play, they'd have to be done with school by Christmas because otherwise you're literally dropping out of school. You're going to drop out of school to play in the XFL? I don't know that you are. Now, maybe you're not interested in school and you're only in school to play football and you could have a chance to get a paycheck here. And so, yeah, you will. But I don't know how many it will be. I also don't think it'll be any of the good players from the respective schools. Those that have a first, second, or third round draft grade, they're not going to risk playing in the spring for their college, and they're not going to risk playing for what they're going to make in the XFL. So I don't think so. I mean, let's be honest. Do we think the XFL can play in the spring of 2020?
No. I
think they could. I think they could. You know, part of me wonders, I've heard that The Rock may do what the UFC's doing, that The Rock may go find an island. Honestly, that he may take everybody and also he's going to then do reality show programming off of it, leading in. He's going to have shows during the week leading into the game. It's going to be ballers is what I heard he's going to try to do. He's going to try to create reality programming around the XFL, and then the games will get played on the weekend.
Yeah, I think he's taken his character a little too seriously when he bought the team. You are an owner in a television show. You're a wrestler, an actor, and a very good one. Doesn't mean you know how to run a football league just because you play it on a television show. What you do there is you're reading a script. This, you're going to have to improvise a little bit more. It'll fail. But it just something that was thrown out, and we hadn't really discussed it, and I know how much you love spring football.
I do, absolutely.
I know. I'm not joking.
But I think what could come of this for the MAC and the Mountain West or the Sun Belt or something, I think that instead of the XFL or a professional spring football league making it, I do think coming out of COVID-19 could be that a couple of these conferences just move to the spring, negotiate their own separate TV deals, and they stop trying to play with the haves. They just end it altogether. No, we're not. We're a have-not. But this is our business model. This is how we're going to make it work. And we're going to do it in the spring. That's it. And we play for a conference championship. Because let's face it, we're not going to the playoff. We're not playing for a national championship. So what's the difference if we play in April or November?
I think it's far more likely that a conference like the MAC at this point realizes who they are and they drop to the FCS.
Could be.
That's what I don't ever see spring football happening at the collegiate level. I just don't. It's not because I'm not playing this because they've never done it thing. I just know if you're a MAC kid, you want to play. You play football in the fall. You want to go beat Michigan or Michigan State or Ohio State or Illinois or whomever it is. That's why you go to those schools, because you want your shot at the schools that turned you down. If not, you're going to go play in the Sun Belt.
Fair enough. Let me ask you this. Back to the question I asked Drew, only I'm going to eliminate half of the no. And he's right, by the way. There are these, if you leave a conference, you give up your media rights for years. And so all the money that you would get when you go to your new conference, that actually goes back to your old conference. So you're not making money for quite a while. I mean, the ACC's penalty is severe if you were to leave the ACC right now in terms of how long they own your media rights. Now, you could try to fight it in court, but that'll take years. Let's just say Nebraska's done with the Big Ten, and they're willing to take the financial hit, and it'll be significant, to leave. You know what? This was a mistake. We're done. let's go back to our roots. We're going back to the Big 12. If you're the Big 12, do you take them?
First off, David, there is no way in hell Nebraska's leaving the Big Ten. Okay? I love talking about it, and it's a lot of fun. And I thought Joshua Perry answered all of these questions very simply when I said to him, when you asked the Nebraska, because I didn't really have another question. You asked the Nebraska question, I went, ooh, I have another question. What if it were Ohio State? And he said, I'm pretty sure that conversation happened behind closed doors the way it should. And there was probably a lot of yelling and screaming back and forth between Ohio State and the powers that be at the Big Ten. But just for the reasons you pointed out, I don't even think Maryland is getting full Big Ten money yet. I'm not sure if Rutgers is. I'm trying to find out when Nebraska became a full paid member of the Big Ten. Nebraska can't survive without that money.
Well, I'll say this, though, Mark. There is the possibility, if you're the Big Ten, and you don't like to set this precedent, but remember, right now the pie gets divvied up 14 ways. Nebraska leaves, it only gets divvied up 13 ways. The other schools may say to Commissioner Warren, we each make about $3-4 million if Nebraska leaves. We're fine with it. Now, I know you got to uphold the prestige and with deals so that others don't leave, but let's face it, who's wanting to leave this conference? You guys have been around for how long? Who's raised their hand and said they want out? Wouldn't they be the first to basically say they want out? I mean, if you're the Big Ten, the other members may say, hey, Frank, let them leave.
I mean, the conference was founded in 1896.
Yeah, but the other schools may say to Kevin Warren, Kevin, let them leave. Just be as big of a public bully as you want, but let them leave. We all make more money if they leave. But I'm being serious about this because if you're the Big 12 now, Mark, you divvy your money up 10 different ways. You bring in Nebraska, you divide it by 11. Is Nebraska worth it?
No. No, they're not.
Well, let me just say this. Gut feeling, I'd agree with you. However, from a TV standpoint, if you can put Oklahoma against Nebraska again and Texas against Nebraska again, you fight if you're the Big 12 to get a marquee spot at 4 o'clock. You don't have a ton of games that Fox and ABC/ESPN are willing to move other conference games around to give you the best slot.
Texas and Nebraska would have a long way to go to get that. Oklahoma, Nebraska gets it instantly, David. Okay. I don't ever remember Texas and Nebraska being a huge deal. I remember it being a deal, but Oklahoma, Nebraska was a big flipping deal. Oklahoma, Texas was a big flipping deal. Nebraska, Texas,
Yeah, for the longest time, Texas wasn't good enough.
Right. By the way, neither of them are right now.
Miller and Moulton. Seth Everett will join us on the other side. The good, the bad, and the ugly is about 25 minutes away. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
We do this all for you.
You are correct.
So sit back and enjoy.
It's fun. It's the best.
Enjoy the banter.
Sucks in sports.
That's the game.
Enjoy the conversation that makes you think.
I would not think about ripping him.
What are you talking about?
Enjoy all of this.
Love it. Embrace it. Isn't it great? And let's not forget.
Because we're doing it all for you.
You just watch. We're going to do it. And do it often.
We're Fox Sports Radio.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know is D.R. Martineau. You can count on us for great service. You can count on us to get it done. You can count on us for a price that's fair, and quality is second to none. For professional roofing, the name you need to know is D.R. Martineau.
No. Miller and Moulton fan.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonathan Fran.
Nebraska cannot make the kind of money they do in any other conference in the Big Ten. One, the SEC wouldn't take them, and that's the only conference that's close to bringing in the money. Everybody else is miles behind these two conferences financially. Miles behind.
And the Big Ten's number one. I mean, I know we live in SEC country and all that, and they're the number one conference in football. There's no doubt about it. But the Big Ten brings in the most money. And the Big Ten, Ohio, once again, I'll say it again, Ohio State's the number one in ratings. And it ain't close either.
But the Big Ten's getting about $50 million a year. The SEC this year was expected to get into the mid-40s. So, and then everybody else is like, the closest one's about 30 a team, I think. And in the Big 12, Texas and Oklahoma still get more money than everybody else.
Right. That's why Nebraska left. Revenue wasn't split equally. The Longhorn Network was coming about. Nebraska said, this is bullshit. We're leaving.
But they only joined a couple of years or a year before Maryland and Rutgers, Rutgers. They joined 11. Rutgers was 12. Maryland was 14. Just looked it up. That's the only reason I know, David.
Rutgers has been in since 2012. Holy blank.
6, 7, 8 years ago is exactly what it'll be worth now, but only at Naples Nissan.
Hey, Seth.
Oh, I'm sorry, 14 for Rutgers. They both joined in 14. Hi, Seth.
How are you?
Good. You hearing me okay?
You're a little softer than
usual,
softer
than normal. I could take a little more volume.
I would love to. I'd love to give it to you, baby.
Oh. You're very dark today.
Yeah, I'm okay. I had to reinstall this Ring Central because excuse me, while you guys were gone, I redid my computer.
Right.
So I can take my microphone out and do the webcam. It's louder, but it's not as good a quality. So is it?
Oh, you're
low?
fine. No, you're good. You're fine.
If it's fine, it's fine.
Just pretend you're the rock and roll singer. Just get real close to the microphone. That's all.
How you doing, baby?
Exactly, baby. Welcome to Detroit.
What do we got going on? Oh, look. Ooh. Sorry, I was watching a little traffic.
What shirt today?
You want me to show?
No. Okay. No. That's fine then. We'll save it.
I'm like hunching.
I know. We want to make sure we have the big reveal. I could guess though.
Just from the top.
Oh, it's cute.
From the very top.
It could be.
No,
cute.
I'm thinking it's Colorado. It could be an old Colorado Rockies something.
Maybe. It is me.
It'd be great if it was the old hockey team's shirt. That would be fantastic.
The old Rockies hockey team.
Yeah, because that's who became the Devils.
When I was working for the Avalanche and the Devils came to town, I did a whole intermission feature on the history of those two franchises playing each other in opposite dressing rooms. When the Quebec Nordiques would play the Colorado Rockies in the same building.
Here we go.
This is Miller and Moulton. You're live.
Turn the light on.
28 minutes past the hour. Now 29 minutes past the hour. How about that? Miller and Moulton.
Telling
Southwest
time.
Florida, Fox Sports Radio. It's Seth Everett time. It's right around 8:30 on a Wednesday. And for those of you that watch via YouTube or twitch.tv, there is Seth. And now when Seth joins us, there's the big introductory reveal. Seth makes a fashion statement.
But it's so fun.
Makes a fashion statement, all right, off the top of his guest appearance. Seth, what are you wearing?
I'm wearing Dolce & Gabbana. This is an old school Colorado Rockies hockey jersey.
Yes.
Got it in the 90s when I lived in Denver, and they love that logo. That logo is like their state logo. And they sell these all over the place. But the Colorado Rockies started in 1974, the year I was born, in Kansas City. They were the Scouts. And then after 3 seasons, they moved to Denver, became the Colorado Rockies, and only stayed there for 6 years, and then were sold and moved to New Jersey. And an 8-year-old Seth Everett voted for the team name, and they became the New Jersey Devils.
So there you have it, Colorado Rockies. Didn't they become the Cleveland Barons after the Colorado Rockies?
No, they went right from Colorado, and I remember that because I was 8, and my father showed me a newspaper that was for the first time that folded, not like the New York Post. I'd never seen a newspaper like that, and the headline was Rocky Mountain franchise comes to Garden State. And I'll never forget it.
First professional franchise.
Okay. All right, Seth.
Yeah.
I know we usually have you on for baseball. We'll get there. But all the news right now is college football.
Sure.
The Big Ten, Pac-12, and a couple other Group of 5 conferences have said no to football.
Yep.
Do you think that the 3 conferences playing football will even start in the spring?
You know, I just wonder what the conversations behind closed doors are really like. The doctor from Duke was so obnoxious yesterday in the ESPN story. The doctor from Duke, and I'm not a political person, and I'm not trying to be political here, but when people who don't know things about a virus and start making claims, including the Hall of Fame coach Jim Boeheim, who have said irresponsible things about, well, these kids, just let them get it. It's no big deal. And you see these guys with lung issues. You see these guys with heart issues. If we need to bring up Eduardo Rodriguez, I can. There's no reason that we have to say factual inaccuracies. I am crushed that football is not happening. And I've listened to you guys and I know you guys for a long time. And I think it's tragic because there are going to be good people that lose good jobs. And I am brokenhearted that college football is not happening. And I'd love to see them try. If the SEC and the ACC think they can try, that's fine. But for the ACC doctor to sit there and say the risk is minimal because they're young and strong, well, that's a bunch of poppycock. And that's wrong. And if you're going to be that irresponsible with kids' lives, then cancel the whole thing.
Mark, I believe officially that's our first poppycock.
I think so.
It might be in show history. It's definitely in our second act.
As I was going through it, I said, I'm going to have to not curse here. And what word am I going to use that's unique?
We're both MASH fans, and I do think Colonel Potter every once in a while would go with poppycock instead of horse hockey. So I
it is interesting, though, that
Howie Rose in, it'll be Archie Bunker.
It's interesting that it's the Duke doctor, because this is the same doctor who is credited with shutting down the college basketball and really the college sports season at the moment that they shut it down, because Duke was the first school to say, if you go forward, that's fine, but we're out.
Yeah,
and he was the reason why.
That Duke doctor talked to John Swofford, the ACC commissioner, and he just says, well, we've assessed the risk, and it's a minimal risk. And how about this? You can't play sports without some kind of risk. Well, no kidding. You also can't go across the street without some kind of risk. That's not the point. And the point is, this thing has an incubation period of 14 days. You could test every day. Guys could get it, and they could spread it, and then you'll never know. And football is the most contact sport. And I'm not saying you can't play sports, because I watched 7 hours of sports yesterday and had a great time.
And it was only one game.
It was only one game, but I didn't even have to find my. I didn't have to find my remote. But the thing is if the ACC wants to give it a go, if the SEC wants to give it a go, fine. But don't give me BS rationale to justify it. And I have a meeting tomorrow. At 9 a.m. I am on the faculty at Syracuse University. I'm expected to be there on August 27th. I just read that the University of Pennsylvania is telling all their students to go home. Make up your mind, folks. We're too goddamn fractured. I'm tired of this. I want one rule. We can fight this together. But one rule, not this guy wants one thing and this guy wants one thing and everybody's fractured and we can't decide if the sky is blue or gray.
You're absolutely right. And Seth, I've said this for the listeners have heard it, but my son's going into his 4th year at East Carolina. He's a redshirt, so I don't want to call him a senior yet without playing sports. But he's had a job all throughout college and damn near works full time. But
and that's why I wore the red shirt.
While I was on vacation, he got an email from East Carolina University, and he looks at me and he says, "Dad," he goes, "you know at the grocery stores how they have the one ways and no one follows them?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "They're trying to tell us that that's how we're going to walk around campus this year."
God.
And I mean, it's unbelievable. And you're right, Seth. Every college campus is different, but to this point, and I'd be curious after your call with Syracuse.
Yeah,
we're going to put kids on campus, supposedly, at some schools. We're going to have them go to classes because they are right now going to on-campus classes at university. It's happening.
It's happening.
And yet, we're telling the student-athlete not to play sports. It's bizarre to me because,
a valid argument.
Seth, right. I know you were in school when athletic dorms still existed. And I know they kind of do now, but there was a time in which all the football players were in one dorm. To me, there was a bubble, at least until the games were played, Seth, that was available to put players in, and it was never
not if they're
once
going to campus. But not if
no. But you could have online classes. This was easy, all in one dorm, all online classes. They're all together. They could have bubbled them until the games. Not saying that it was perfect, but there was a method there, and it was never discussed. Never. It was either we're going to play and they're all on campus, or we're not going to play. They had months to try to figure out a system, and no one had anything.
And that was Trevor Lawrence. That was Dino Babers. See, again, there's an argument for college football that doesn't involve factual inaccuracies. And that's all I ask for, is that if we could just be on the same page when it comes to the facts, get your facts straight and make your decisions from there. And you knew the SEC was going to hold out. And my prediction, if I had to make a prediction, is that these conferences that are watching the Big Ten and Pac-12 are going to sit there and they're going to say, this is too hard. We can't do this. But also the ACC schools are not revealing how many positive tests they have anyway. They're not telling you. And I have had the fight with Syracuse University because I could say, well, what can stop me from going on Twitter and saying your whole offensive line has it? And people, you can't refute me. And they would be, oh, that's slander, blah, blah, libel, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, it's not, because you would have to tell me. And that's where this problem comes from. And literally, if you go on social media, and I posted the Jim Boeheim comment, Jim Boeheim's absolutely out of his mind. And it's crazy. And there were at least 40% of the people on my and I have like 5,000 people on my Facebook, and there are people there I don't even know. And these people were coming out and going, Boeheim's right. They're 20 years old. Let them get it. No problem. And you're seeing spots on lungs. You're seeing heart issues. And I'm not saying, and again, I'm not the alarmist, and I'm not saying that I know that all 20-year-olds are going to get that. I don't know. But you don't know either. And Mark, you don't know. And David, you don't know. And I don't know. And so let's stop pretending we're all experts when it comes to this thing.
He's Seth Everett, Sports with Friends, Hall of Justice, are his two great podcasts. You can follow him on Twitter at Seth_Everett. Something came up a couple days ago in which I guess Major League Baseball reached out to the Players Association and said, when the playoffs come around, do you want to try to create a bubble? Now, I do think it's important because people have said they've criticized Major League Baseball. And Seth, all of us can criticize Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball for a lot of things. But Major League Baseball did say to the players months ago, hey, we'd like to create a bubble. And the players said, no, we're not interested. We're not spending 4 months away from our families. So the reason baseball doesn't have a bubble is the players.
The league too.
Well, but the league asked, and the player said absolutely not.
I asked them both. Remember, my whole proposal in April was 81 games in 90 days in September, October, November in Florida and Arizona, because that's when the weather would be palpable.
Right.
And play your playoffs and World Series in December. And I said, well, what's the difference? Because the NBA and the NHL won't have restarted by then. Football, we don't know what's happening, so let's play your World Series then. And you could do it in Florida and Arizona, and I think it would be great. You know, we should note the Marlins ballpark and the Arizona ballpark are gorgeous ballparks. So you could play your World Series there, and it would look amazing. And the Union, and I talked to my guy at the Union, this was in April. This was way before Sorry about that. I talked to my guy at the union way before any of the information was really known about COVID. This was in early April, and they said there's no way. The players will not go for it, and the league didn't want to even pursue it. And they said no. And as soon as they said, if we do this, we're going to do it in our home ballparks. And I said, well, is there going to be any kind of isolation for the players? They said no. And I was on your show in May and June. I said, this plan should not happen. I was never in favor of this hodgepodge major league plan. They're doing it and they're going for it. But in the playoffs, for the NBA and the NHL, they know that it's a finite window that you're there. And the only reason you'd be there for a long time is a good reason, meaning you're winning. So for the NHL and the NBA, teams are going to start to go home. Like the Washington Wizards go home Friday.
Right. They've said basically whoever's not in, they're out immediately.
You're out immediately. And so for the playoffs with these best of 3 series and these best of 5 series and all these stupid plans, you could have a bubble. You probably have to have 2 because you're inviting, half the league there. And you'd have 2 isolated situations. But the people who lose in those 3 games, you're only going to be isolated for the 2 weeks prior to be quarantined. And then you're going to have to come in and play 5 days or 3 days, and then you're going home. And the players would be amicable for that. The bubble should have happened all along. I mean, that should have happened. The St. Louis Cardinals have to play 55 games in 43 days.
Yeah, it's 43 now because they just canceled the doubleheader against the Tigers. You're right.
Right.
That's a fluid situation because the numbers keep changing on the number of days they have to get them in.
Never to let the numbers get in the way of a good argument.
Right. All right, Seth. I will say, with the bubble it was easy, but basketball you had Lou Williams going to the strip joint and getting the wings, and you have the Indians pitcher who went out and kind of got narked on. I do think at least, tell me if
the other guy went on the plane. He was with them,
right?
And he didn't tell anybody. Clevenger, right. He didn't tell anybody. Went on the he actually is worse.
Yes, but they're starting to turn in on their own, if you know what I mean. I will say, since what happened with the Marlins and the Cardinals, it certainly seems that baseball was slapped in the face. And it appears that the players are at least trying to take it more seriously. And I think the ripple effect, and tell me whether or not you agree, Seth, is you're already hearing about football teams that are wanting to voluntarily get in a bubble for camp and do more. Do you think baseball finally takes this serious by player?
The problem is, and it goes back to what we said at the beginning of the segment, it's not enough of the people. It's not everybody. It's not en masse. It's everyone has a different viewpoint. Everyone wants a different thing. There are some players, and this is one thing that I've talked to a lot of baseball people, because again, if you go to ballparks, and I just want to make it clear, if I go to ballparks, all I'm doing are Zoom chats with about 30 other people. That I don't see I'm not getting the access that I used to have. So for me to go to these games is kind of pointless. But from a standpoint of, I talk to the people who do go to the games, and what they're saying is there are some players that are taking this very seriously, and other players think it's a great nuisance, and you can see it on the field. One thing, one of the daily news writers, Philadelphia daily news writers, said to me is you can sense it when you're watching a game. If you watch it really closely, you can see what happens when players are very conscious of the protocols in their regular routines. But one thing that I've noticed, and I have said this publicly, and no one's commented from the league, because I've called the league, they're not enforcing the rules that they have. You're supposed to be penalized if you spit. You're supposed to be penalized for high fives. And the players that are not in the game are not supposed to be in the dugout. They're supposed to be in the tent area, the covered tent area behind the dugout, and nobody's in there. And these players are all in the dugout. So if you're not enforcing your protocols, what's the point? In the NHL, if you're caught out of the bubble, your team loses a draft pick. But in baseball, if you break the rules, nothing happens to you. And I just think they're not on the same page. And there are 3 to 5 guys on each team that think COVID is stupid and masks are dumb and all those things. And I think that what you're going to see is the teams that are struggling, and I'll pick on the Orioles just for fun. if you're in the Baltimore Orioles and you're now it's hot as molasses in August and you're tired of this, what happens when they start to break ranks? Because that's when you're going to have a lot of problems getting competition if these teams that are out of it are saying, God, I don't want to. It's too much of a pain. It's too hard.
Yeah, we wondered that about football, the teams that get off to a bad start. You know, you cover the Jets. You wonder if, let's just say last year's Jets season happens again. The Jets, I think, were 1-7.
Yeah.
Now they finished 6-2, but you wonder with everything that's going on this year, if a team gets off to that kind of start, will they mentally and otherwise just check out?
Well,
and also stop abiding by the protocols.
And I'll tell you a little bit about that. Friday is their first pads practice, and the media was invited. We're going. I'm going to be at Jets camp. If I don't go Friday, I'm going Sunday, and I think that's crazy. And there's a guy in the media, and it's not a Sports Illustrated guy, and I'm not giving his name, but he literally asked me, what are the chances of getting one-on-ones? One-on-ones? I said, what are you, dreaming? I said, that's I can't imagine I'm going to be able to go up to Mekhi Becton and say, hey, let's sit at the picnic table and do a social distancing visit. Like, that's not happening. I can't imagine that. I don't know what the NFL's plans are once this thing gets on. And the fear, again, this is just a fear, is that once they start traveling, this is why I wanted them to have a preseason game, at least one. A preseason game for the NFL is important because I want to see how they're traveling. And I think the players deserve to know that and not have it be during week one. And then, a lot of players that I've talked to, and I've talked to 76 Zooms in the last 10 days with these Jets players, a lot of them will say, 6-year veterans will go, I was an undrafted free agent and I made a team, and then, now I'm making, millions of dollars. And these undrafted free agents have no opportunity to impress.
None.
And you've changed the dynamic of your league because there are undrafted free agents that have just as much a chance once they get into a game. And to take the preseason games out, to me, was defeatist because from a COVID standpoint, how are you traveling? And if you're saying you cancel those preseason games because you don't know how to travel, well, then by week 3, we're going to be done anyway.
Well, our NFL guy, Pat Kerwin, has talked for years about that Seahawks team that won the Super Bowl. They had 5 starters on that team. 5 of their 22 starters were undrafted free agents. Seth, we're pressed for time. Quickly, Sports with Friends, Hall of Justice.
A great pioneering woman reporter from the 70s, Diane Shaw. She has a new book about her path to cover locker rooms and clubhouses when nobody allowed women in the clubhouses. Diane Shaw, she's going to be joining us. The podcast will come out later on this afternoon. And then for Hall of Justice, we have the cast of Arrow, including Katie Cassidy, David Cassidy's daughter, and Juliana Harkavy, and a bunch of the cast from the great CW TV show Arrow.
Outstanding deal. He's Seth Everett, Sports with Friends, Hall of Justice. Follow him on Twitter at Seth_Everett. And for the record, this appearance, he unveiled an old Colorado Rockies hockey shirt.
Love it.
They were only around.
Colorado Rockies baseball team.
And they were only around for 7 years. Most famous player, Barry Beck.
And Chico Resch.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
That's the one I would remember. That was the card I had. That's the
Barry
the hockey
Beck
card
was
I
the
remember.
best player they had, but Chico Resch was the most famous.
Yeah, well played. And Chico now broadcasting Devils and has been pretty much since their inception.
And accidentally spit on my daughter's cupcake, and that's what my daughter knows him as.
The spitter. All right.
The spitter.
Thanks, Seth.
See you guys.
Miller and Moulton, the good, the bad, and the ugly to wrap things up after this.
Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Seth.
How are you guys?
Oh, we're good. We're good. Actually,
that was so funny. I'm doing my Alabama thing, and you're telling him about the Alabama thing. That was hysterical. And I'm searching for news because I'm at 1:45 and the thing's 2 minutes long, and I got nothing else. And I'm trying to find out some random story, and he's going, Seth's right now doing some Alabama sports report. I'm like, yes, I am doing it. That was funny. And the other thing was, I heard you say, and I wasn't paying attention, but I heard you say, I hope that game goes 6 hours and ends at 9 o'clock. And I went, wow, that's exactly what happened.
I know.
Liam McHugh, by the way, looked like he was going to pass out.
Yes, he did.
And he's just doing the intermissions.
Listen, Mike
I hate Mike Milbury.
By the third overtime.
I had it on in the background. I didn't hear him say the thing, but I saw your guys tweet.
He was so uninterested, but also he sounded bored by it. I mean, Mike, instead of being energized by it,
he was terrible.
Like,
he got worse and worse as the game went on. I mean, there were some thrilling moments some big saves. I mean, my goodness, there was some chances
My
in those
favorite
overtimes.
guy, I don't know who tweeted it, but somebody said, when do they put a skater on second base? that was funny. And then the interview after the game on NBC when the guy can't catch his breath. He literally is hyperventilating, and they're interviewing him. You can't see that, you know what? Maybe let him go and just not have as long an interview.
Did you hear what Patrick Sharp said? Patrick Sharp goes, my goodness, the guy's breathing half to death, and we don't even let him sit down. He just wait for 6 hours and let him stand.
What is the point of that? But you know what? The beauty of the isolation, you don't think of COVID the whole time.
No.
I'm not worried about this guy clamoring into this guy and this guy hugging this guy. I don't care. It's so clean, and it's sports. And the NHL presentation, no offense to the NBA, is so on point. They're doing such a great job with this. And did you see the Carolina tweet? Hey, NHL, we were supposed to have the arena at 8, and these guys won't let us.
Oh,
that was
so great.
Day. That was
it's fantastic.
The whole thing, the hockey, I applaud them so much. They are doing great, and the games are all day. My only criticism of the NBA is you recreated your regular season, and you don't care about your regular season. So guys are in isolation, yet taking days off.
Yes, and you could also
I'm not blaming the players. It's just the games are irrelevant.
Correct.
And so if you're gonna go into the bubble, at least play games that count. And the NHL did a better job creating that round robin play-in tournament because the games felt like playoffs.
They actually, well, I mean, hey, that Boston game. I mean, winner gets. You're watching. Winner gets the 3 seed, loser gets the 4 seed. That's a relevant game.
And the Toronto Columbus was amazing.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
I saw the comeback, by the way. The down 3-0 with 4 minutes to go. I was watching.
Oh, I watched. I had money on Columbus for the series. Think I wasn't watching. I was losing my mind.
That's crazy too. And people are like, how is Columbus going to recover? Who knows? They could come out completely flat. You don't know. And that's the beauty of sports. You don't know. And the hockey playoffs.
By the way, Torch can coach.
Hey, he's a dick.
Okay, but he can coach.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll say this.
He reminds me of Mark Crawford.
But Seth, I'll say this: Torts has apparently changed in Columbus, and he's even said.
Fine, I don't. Yeah, you're right. I don't pay attention
to
that
New York.
closely.
He was still. New York was his major dick phase. He was a decent guy who got ornery by the end in Tampa. He was a complete a-hole in New York, and he mellowed in Columbus.
I know you guys got to go, but when the Rangers win the lottery, I tweeted, I go, the NHL is stupid. Their bubble's dumb. They should all go home.
Right.
Hockey's dumb.
Right. Finally did it for the Rangers. They did it for the Knicks, 30 years ago? Now they finally do it for the Rangers.
Yep. First
Rangers,
overall
the goddamn Rangers.
Trust me, I'm a Red Wing fan, and I got the 4th pick with the worst team. So don't get me started with you and your flipping trap Devils.
And the funny thing about when the first game back, everyone's like, hockey's back, and I'm like, well, that's the Rangers.
Still on. Yeah. All right.
See you guys.
Bye, Seth.
Right. Have a good one.
Roofing of Southwest Florida. We're still finding a lot of roofs with hurricane and windstorm.
Had to kick him out.
Call us today for a free inspection. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-1441.
License number CCC 1326954.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know is DR Martineau.
From the best headlines,
The best.
to the worst,
It's the worst thing that ever happened to anybody ever.
prepare yourself and hide the women and children. This is Mark Miller's Good, Bad, and Ugly on Fox Sports Radio.
You're live.
For the good, we go north of the border, where a group of young men from Canada wanted to go see a waterfall. So they set out on a 2.5-mile hike to view it. One of the guys, 21-year-old Aaron Friesen, was born with cerebral palsy, and he's been in a wheelchair his entire life, but that did not stop him from making the trek. The group set off Very rough terrain. They took turns pushing the wheelchair. When they realized that wasn't going to work, they put logs under the wheelchair and carried Aaron to the waterfall. We just wanted to see the waterfall, and Aaron goes wherever we go. Cool.
Nice.
Very well done, young men. Very well done. For the bad, we go to Phoenix, where 14-year-old Angel Martinez was caught by police speeding in the family car. I did say 14-year-old. While his parents were celebrating their anniversary. So they weren't all that happy when they got the call from the police. So, well, his punishment, they made him give away everything. Apparently they had a little cash because he had the family's Range Rover out for a spin and disrupted the neighbors. They took out everything in his room, his furniture set, the TV, his clothes, put it in the driveway in front of the house. They made Angel sit on a bed with a sign that read, "I stole my parents' car and was speeding." Since everything had to go, he is now sleeping on the floor or the living room couch for the time being. He claims he's learned his lesson. Said, "I think it's kind of weird, but I think it's a fair punishment." Wow.
My mother would do something like that.
My mom threw away all my baseball cards because I left them out on the floor. And I mean, I had thousands of baseball cards.
Wow. That's I mean.
And she slipped on them. She went into the bedroom, and you know those Topps cards were a little slick. She slipped. "I told you to put these away," and took them and threw them all away.
Wow. That's
Finally, the ugly. We go to New York City, where yesterday morning a topless woman was seen walking through Times Square, almost entirely exposed, rather. She did have her face mask on, but still didn't cover her mouth properly. Gina was wearing hot pink booty shorts and sunglasses, flashed a smile to onlookers and said, "I don't give a story. I'm looking for one." And that is the good, the bad, and the ugly. On today, August the 12th, this is 2020.
Yes, it is.
And remember, because it is 2020, playoff hockey starts in 2.5 hours.
Right, 11 o'clock. Bruins and Hurricanes, baby. We've got Marlins baseball coming up at 6 tonight from Buffalo.
We're bigger than Buffalo. Miller and Moulton, the Dan Patrick
They've got
Show.
the Marlins and the Jays.
Thanks, Giro. Thanks, everyone. I love